And what about rule number 3? The whole point of making amends is to fulfill rule number 3.
You know, you're a cynic, Doc. Of course, I completed rule number 3.
I am no longer the Winter Soldier.
I'm James Bucky Barnes,
And you're part of my efforts to make amends.
And welcome back to A Stark Contrast, where we discuss the differences and similarities from Marvel Comics to their MCU counterparts. And we are your hosts, Geoffrey
and Dai.
Hello. Welcome back, everybody.
What it do?
Yes.
Boo? How you doing, Jeff?
I'm sore, but,
Yeah.
Bodies recovering, but we are... another week, another recording.
Another day in the life.
I always look forward to recording because it's like, because I sit home at a desk all day for work, which is cool.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Mm-hmm. But then, you're like, oh, I have this other thing that I do.
Exactly. Like, so, what am I doing tonight? Oh, yeah.
Recording a podcast.
Which we still have trouble believing that we have.
Yeah.
But that's fun.
Imposter syndrome, baby.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, guys, what's up? Welcome to the show. As you see on our handy dandy sheet, Jeff, I had some sad news to start the show off with, but hopefully that doesn't stay course the entire run. But some sad news in the industry. We mentioned in a previous episode that comic legend George Perez had been battling pancreatic cancer, and unfortunately he passed away on May 6th. An icon stemming from the early 70s well until 2019, like George was such an exceptional, artist and creator. He had an amazing career, an incredible talented man. And so it's a devastating loss for everyone, and especially those who loved him. So rest in power, Mr. Perez.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah. But in lighter news, we do have new listener news for us. And so, hola y gracias to our friends in Spain.
Yeah, finally something I can pronounce without botching it.
Yeah.
Hola. It's probably like, yeah.
Hola. Yeah, so it's nice to see that, again, more countries are popping up.
That's crazy.
And we're, happy to share that we officially have listeners in 40 countries. Exactly 40 countries.
Exactly 40.
Yeah, and so we can't thank you enough.
Yes.
Isn't that crazy, Jeff?
Yeah. Thank you guys.
40 countries.
Thank you all.
And even if it was just like one person in each country.
Oh, I'll take it.
I will take that because I think that's just so,
the fact that it has that far of a reach. I think that in general is mind-boggling,
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, thank you so much. What else do you want to cover before we jump into this? The She-Hulk trailer.
Oh my gosh.
Teaser trailer just dropped.
Actually, yeah, why is it that on the days that we are planning to record,
I know.
Like the randomest Marvel thing will just get
Constantly.
announced.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Like today, official pictures of Echo on set of Alaqua Cox.
Alaqua Cox, yeah.
Came out today. I was like, cool. I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see that series. Yep. And then randomly, I'll never forget. I remember this exactly because you texted me at 2:57
p.m.
3:50.
No,
3:57.
Was it 3?
3:57 p.m. I think.
No, it was 2:57.
Was it 2:57?
Which is still weird.
Oh, it was 2:57 because I was in a meeting.
Yeah.
Official is there teaser trailer?
Teaser trailer and the poster, which is funny because you saw the poster.
Yeah.
And then I texted you the trailer, and you were like, "Oh wait, the trailer."
Yeah, because my Twitter feed like it does the random like algorithm like suggested and like people I follow, and then I just saw from one of the comic Twitters I followed, it said like, official name for She-Hulk has been announced. Like, oh, She-Hulk Attorney at Law. I was like, cool, sick. And then you were like, and you texted me in caps, She-Hulk. And I was like, yeah, Attorney at Law. And you were like, oh my God, the trailer. I was like, what?
Yeah.
There's a trailer? And I was like, oh my God.
I didn't realize the poster had dropped too until you said that right back at me. And I was like, oh. oh wow, they doubled down. They just,
Yeah.
here you go.
Yeah. At 2:57 p.m.
Bizarre.
The randomest.
Yeah. That like to me,
Yeah.
as a time management manager on social media and marketing, I was
Yeah.
like, oh, that was
Yeah.
that seems
For,
strange.
for
but
people that don't know, like when companies, brands, whatever, they do these marketing drops and everything's planned
everything is
to
strategically planned.
to the T.
Yeah, and
12
they're-
p.m.
Yep.
Pacific time, 3 p.m.
Exactly.
Eastern, Central.
It's
Like
always even.
yeah, they're like just drop it. Like we have so much going on right now. Let's just
It's
give it
so
to them.
wild. It's so
But
wild.
but yeah,
yeah.
She-Hulk.
Yeah.
I mean,
I surprisingly did not watch Orphan Black. Like I'm very limited on my knowledge of it, and let alone like have seen her. But I've seen some clips of her and some parts, and she does an incredible job on that show. There's a reason why she could hold like that mantle playing different characters for so long, because she was just
okay, yeah.
exceptional in her
Yeah.
portrayals. And so this will be my official first real like like introduction to her as an actress. And so I'm really stoked that it happens to be a character that I'm familiar with. And so I think and I said this to Jeff earlier, I think she's gonna like completely kill this role. Like she's gonna really own it.
I think she
and just-
played it.
Woo.
From what we've seen already in the trailer,
Yeah.
I'm like,
I love
it was
her
good.
already.
And
yeah.
I told Dai too. I was like, oh, the chemistry between
yeah.
her and Bruce. I'm like, it's there.
I believe that they're cousins. Like already. Like they're cousins. They're related. Yeah.
Really?
They look related to me. Like they come off like relatives.
And then Abomination was in it too.
Yeah.
I forget. I am blanking on the actor's name.
Yeah, me too. Sadly.
Pain.
We're gonna
But,
hate each
like,
other.
I'll-
Hate
like-
ourselves after
Yeah,
this.
but like he's coming back. So like, oh man, it's kind of like
Yet again.
this is like what is it? This is like
Yeah.
Mark Ruffalo's or in the Hulk's like
Redemption?
10th, 12th appearance
I know.
or in the MCU
Yeah.
because like obviously he can't have his own movie because
Right. Thanks,
Universal.
Oh, Universal, yeah.
Yeah, because
that one's Universal.
because Universal.
Mm-hmm.
But he's been able to tell a story throughout like multiple MCU projects,
Yeah,
and
that's
you know you got to kind of
incredible.
make do with what you can. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that he's gonna play like a pretty big role in the
Yeah.
She-Hulk.
Yeah. So it's exciting. And, like Jeff and I were going over everything that's coming out. And so, once again, it's like, so May has essentially been Doctor Strange month. And so, first week of June 6th or whatever, it's Ms. Marvel time.
Yes,
So
excited for
expect
that
to
one
see
too. Yes.
another trailer maybe, or it's the teasers are probably going to start rolling out in the
think
next week or two.
They just dropped maybe like posters, but but
Yeah.
maybe another trailer.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And then after that, it's Thor, Love and Thunder,
in July.
which another photo from that dropped today. Did you see
oh
that?
yeah, they are.
They're dropping stuff.
I
all
will
over the
say this
place.
until the movie releases. Natalie Portman is
She's so
freaking
good.
jacked.
She's cut.
What the hell,
Dude, I thought Tessa Thompson's arms were like,
Yeah. And then they
Jeez.
release a picture of them together,
Look at
and
that,
you're
I was
like,
like,
oh, wow,
"Ooh,
no, never mind.
gun show.
Natalie Portman's
Pow, pow.
like, hell yeah.
Oh, I'm so here for it. I can't
Like,
wait.
dude.
I'm ready. And then Bast was in that photo as well.
Saw that.
Yeah,
like,
I was
very,
like,
very just in the bottom of the yeah.
Interesting. Anyway, we'll talk about that more
Excited.
when it comes.
Super excited.
And then in August, She-Hulk. So
She-Hulk.
August 17th, that's going to be fun. Can't wait to see that unravel. You think you're ready for this?
Let's do it. Let's jump into the.
So today's this is gonna be a lot. So hold on to your butts. But reminder, we are not experts. We don't claim to be. We're just a couple of nerds nerding out. Oh my word! I just breathed into the
man
microphone.
of the hour.
The man of many people's many hours, actually.
Yeah.
So today's character study, the incomparable, the one and only Winter Soldier, otherwise known as James Buchanan Bucky Barnes.
Yes, sir.
So let's take it back. We're going to overlap quite a bit because, we have covered two major characters that are in Bucky's periphery, those being Cap, who was our episode 3.
Yes.
And then Black Widow, who was our episode, I want to say 6. I always get this mixed up. 5 or 6. I always get her mixed up with Loki and Scarlet Witch.
I think 6.
I want to say 6 as well.
I want to say,
We're
yeah.
probably wrong. but we have a lot to cover for this character because he's got a lot to him. But yeah, first things first. Created by Joe Simon and Jack King Kirby, whose first appearance was in Captain America Comics #1, cover dated March 1941. So going back again to reading these origin issues and the more important parts of this character's history, it still strikes me so crazy, like it's so wild that he is a character from 1941, pre-war type of thing, and it's just like the stuff that was surrounding pop culture at the time, and we'll get into it a little later. But are you aware of this? Because I wasn't aware, or at least had forgotten in recent memory. There was a Captain America serial series in 1944 with real life people.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Black and white during the war. It was, it's something else, but we'll talk about it a little later.
Anytime you mentioned like how old Bucky the character is, I just think of the one line from Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
He's like, have you read Lord of the Rings? Like, dude, I've read the original. Like, come on. Yeah. And I'm like, oh God. Printed, he's like, so old.
When it first came out.
Yeah, when it first came out. And you're like, oh wow, you forget in the MCU and then also in the comics, he's been around since that. Yeah.
He's an old man. And so, with our highest grade, lowest grade, this is an interesting book to examine because we've talked about this before. These older books that are very iconic, Captain America. I mean, come on.
#1 too.
Yeah, those kinds of books. They're never on sale. That you can't just go to a store and be like, I want Captain America Comics #1. Like, it's not going to be there.
Not
you
anymore.
have to go to auction. It has to be authenticated because no one should get scammed for buying a comic book for this amount of money.
100%.
Yeah, but as recent as April 2022, that is last month, a 9.4 grade of this book of Captain America Comics #1 sold. Do you want to give it a ballpark? Did you look at my notes?
I didn't.
Okay, give it a ballpark. Give me a ballpark.
I saw the highest. I was just like, I'm not going to read it because I want to know. I just want to find out when we record.
Give me your guesstimation because I don't think because we weren't doing this whole thing before, so we didn't get to do this.
But then this is exciting now, though.
Yeah, but now you get to do it. So think about it. 1941. Bring it back.
#1. Captain America #1. 9.4.
9.4.
Which is.
Dude,
which is really that is
a long time. That is 8
keeping
years.
Up a 9.4 graded from 1941.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's Captain America. Captain America.
Yeah.
So.
I always like just striking low, just then I can be just like mind blown.
Yeah.
I don't want to say 350,000.
Is that your final answer? I love that you can never confirm.
This sucks. Every time Dai says, "Is that your final answer?" I'm like, "Oh no, it's not. It can't be."
You would blow it on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Dude,
You'd be like, "Oh."
I'd be so bad if someone was like, "Pick door 1 or door 2. One has $1 million. One has a horse," and it's like, I want the money. Like, all right, door number 1. Is that your final? Oh, I don't know if I want to. I don't know. You have a 50% chance. I know.
Okay. Are you ready?
350,000. Yeah, sure.
$350,000.
Oh, I thought you were reading out the answer.
Oh no. The answer is, my dear friend.
It's 1.2 million, huh?
A 9.4 grade of Captain America Comics #1, dated March 1941, sold last month for a crisp $3.12 million.
I swear I'm gonna get better. I'm gonna get better at this guessing stuff, guys.
I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting for it because I believe in you. I think you're gonna start nailing that. I'm gonna be like, dude, I'm so impressed. But can you imagine? 3.1.
Who owns one? I just want. Who's the original? I just want to who owns these?
It's I don't know. I mean, tech. Like Halo investors, businessmen.
I want to know who the first person who had it.
Like,
someone that was like, first of all, someone born in the who grew up in the 40s, obviously, and they're like passing it down to who their children, grandchildren, whatever. And for it to make it over 80 years, 81 years, right?
That's
80,
impressive.
81 years to keep it in pretty much near mint condition. That's it's impossible, but it's obviously possible.
That is the most impressive thing to me. And we said this, I think, when we're talking about in Peter Parker Part 2.
Yeah.
We're talking about how
that appeared.
0.5,
Yeah.
the journey of the book from when it was first printed and who must have owned it through its journey.
And it's still sold for that much. That's the Spider-Man comic. And it was like
ton of money.
And it was a crappy grade.
Yeah. It's barely together. And yet you have an almost pristine copy of Captain America from 1941. 3.2 million. 3.12 million. 3.12 million. Yeah.
I just hear that number and I'm like, that could pay off my loans.
Yeah. You could do a lot with that money. You could
so much.
You could get a house and a half. Or a house. One house. Especially at this inflation.
I know. The economy sucks.
Yeah, it sucks. But if you
insane.
if you want to read more about it, Nerdist actually wrote up the article, and I'll put that in the show notes. But yeah, 3.12 at auction.
It's amazing.
And so, another reminder about this issue in particular is that it was published under Timely Comics. So this is it predates Marvel Comics. That's another aspect of it, which makes its value go up.
It's rarity factor.
Right, exactly. And again, it's the entity that would eventually evolve into Marvel Comics come 1960s. And I think that's another reason why it's so iconic and so historical.
Yeah.
And before we start getting into this, the character study, I was actually Instagram user Ariel Tima. Thanks, Ariel. Left a comment question. Can we get some Bucky Barnes ASMR? And this does not mean Sebastian Stan. This means the cat. So I have a new kitten that we just got
Bucky.
in January. Come here, Bucky. And he is a black cat Lycoi mix. And he's got these distinct stripes. And his left arm is black and silver. Come here, Buck.
But
he's just staring at me like a robot cat.
See, now he's sleepy. Oh, he was all sleeping. Energetic when we were about to record.
Bucky. Oh, he's not into it. Rocket's like, what about me?
Sorry, Rocket. This isn't your episode.
Aw, come here, Buck. Maybe we'll get him later. Yeah, he's not going for it.
Oh, wow.
He is sleepy.
He is.
If you ever want to see a cat refuse the opportunity of treats, just talk to Buchanan Barnes over here. Sheesh. Sorry, Ariel. Hopefully we'll get to it eventually. Jeff, what was your first exposure to Bucky Barnes and the Winter Soldier?
Exactly that. Really? Captain America, the Winter Soldier.
Yeah, I feel like that's true for many.
And I feel like
people,
it's. Yeah. I want to say for a lot of people who love the MCU, who obviously who don't have the comic background that probably most people who watch the MCU movies do.
Yeah.
But people who solely just watch the movies because of it, like I feel like probably 89% of them, that's when they first got introduced to Bucky Barnes. And Winter Soldier. So yeah,
that's cool. I mean, I think I remember when Sebastian first got cast, I was like, he's not a kid, because I was so used to the original version. And we'll of course talk about this in literally a minute probably, but I remember being, they're taking like the adult route, which is definitely a more modern thing, a more modern aspect of the character. But yeah, I'd known him from way back because, like in the older comics and older panels, there's always this, jacked Captain America, and there's this tiny kid next to him wearing red and blue, and it's Bucky, and it's like a very, and I made this comparison actually in my notes that is a very Batman and Robin-esque sort of relationship, or at least it was in the comics. And I think I saved a photo I was going to show you. I probably lost it, so maybe not. But yeah, there was once a crossover, one of those fun crossovers with DC and Marvel, and they actually have a panel of Cap and Bucky with Batman and Robin. And they're like, oh, look at you, hey, what's up, guys? It's very the camaraderie is there. Which is nice. But yeah, to see him portrayed as an adult was kind of like very new, and I was like, oh, that's a cool take, especially this is like the beginnings of the MCU. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
they're jumping into it.
And yeah.
So that was pretty cool. But yeah, let's get into the contrasts here. I actually shockingly have one trading card.
Only? Wow, that's surprising. That.
Well, yeah, because this is kind of, I say this a lot, is that this is a character that kind of has a big gap in their history of when trading cards had really begun to be a thing. And so he's not present during this time frame of like at least the height of the 90s and trading became a thing. But ironically, the one trading card I do have is of Sebastian Stan from the Falcon and the Winter Soldier series.
Nice.
And this is from that set that I told you about when I got it. It's the San Diego Comic-Con.
Oh, yeah.
The limited edition convention exclusive set.
It's all character cards from the shows.
It's literally 9 character cards from the Disney Plus shows, and it's going for obscene amounts of money online as I dropped the entire sheet.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
So much? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because these, I think they only made 500 packs or maybe 1,000 packs. So, and I own 2 of them. So,
ooh,
double down. So I'm not gonna read this Falcon and Winter Soldier one because it is more MCU bound and more modern. But I do have a digital trading card.
There you go.
That even has the height, weight, all that stuff on it.
Oh, nice.
And so the back of the card reads, James Buchanan, Bucky Barnes, fought alongside Captain America during World War II. Like Cap, however, Bucky met a seemingly unfortunate demise during the war. Barnes reemerged as the brainwashed Russian agent known as the Winter Soldier. Familiar.
Yeah.
That pretty much.
As you read that, the
Yeah.
scene played back exactly in
your
my head.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's very similar, at least, on that surface level of things. And so with that, we'll go ahead and really jump into it. So despite being aptly or coincidentally named after the last president before the beginning of the Civil War, this character first appeared in an initial sketch. So Joe Simon, when he was kind of creating this character, was trying out all these different, like, okay, who could the supporting characters of Captain America be? And he drew this young sidekick who would inevitably become Bucky Barnes, and he actually based him off of a childhood friend of his own.
Oh, wow.
Who was a basketball player.
Oh, wow.
In high school. So he was a young kid that Joe Simon knew as a child. His name was Bucky Pearson. So
Wow.
he's like, I'm going to put my friend Bucky in this comic. And now he's Bucky Barnes and the Winter Soldier. So
That's insane.
yeah, it's very interesting. And so, right off the bat, in the comics, straight up, he may appear to be a child, but he's 16 years old. Bucky Barnes was supposed to be much younger than Steve Rogers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so I don't know that they had a distinct age for Steve, but given the war and all that stuff, and he was eligible to enlist, he had to have been at least 21. So we're thinking 21, 23, 24-ish.
Okay. Yeah.
And then Buck is like 8 years younger than him, so he's 16. So that's the biggest contrast right off the bat. And so since we've already mentioned him quite a few times, of course, first thing, also, I meant to mention that in the comics, he's known as James Buchanan Bucky Barnes Jr.
Oh, jeez.
Right. And then in the MCU, he's James Buchanan Bucky Barnes. So
Yeah.
he's not named after anybody else. Don't know what happened there, but I guess it's one of those small things that doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
At least for the MCU version, who is portrayed by Sebastian Stan. First seen in 2011, Captain America the First Avenger, directed by Joe Johnston. And then last seen in 2021, Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah. Bucky in the books, he was pretty much an orphan who hung around.
Okay.
Who hung around Fort Lehigh. And he couldn't enlist because, again, he's 16 years old. And so he was kind of labeled their mascot. So he was just be like, the kid. He's the kid. He's running around. Oh, there goes Bucky.
Yeah.
And he, befriended Steve Rogers in the process. And then They were both kind of like Bucky. It was interesting because Bucky was the 4F in that situation, right? Like he was the one that was not able to enlist, whereas in the films, it's Steve for obvious reasons because he couldn't. He
couldn't. He couldn't qualify to
Steve,
enlist. Yeah.
He was tiny. Whereas of course in the MCU, Bucky was Steve's childhood friend, born and raised in Indiana, and then he eventually moved to New York, or specifically Brooklyn, when the two became friends. And so, that's the same as kind of. I don't know if it's the same with the comic book version because he originates from Indiana and then he's magically in Virginia where Fort Lehigh is. So they kind of don't gravitate to the New York area at all like the MCU does. The MCU like plants him there. They grew up together.
Like it's like in New Jersey, New York, but mostly New York, Brooklyn,
Right. And so but the distinction of the two growing up together and becoming friends was actually lifted from a comic book version of this character in the Ultimates universe, which is similar to what they did with Clinton Barton and his family.
Okay.
So this is another thing where it's kind of like if you're kind of a 616 purist, you may not know so much that that's where it came from, and instead they changed it, and it's like, well, they didn't change it, they just adapted a different version. Where I believe Bucky is also an adult, so that explains that.
Okay.
And so back in the comics, if you recall, I think you maybe remember this when we talked about it. Like Steve Rogers and Captain America were like two different people to many people. They didn't know that Steve Rogers was actually Captain America.
Yes. And
so it's kind of funny how it happens in the books because Bucky didn't know either at first.
Oh shit.
So when Captain America's coming on the scene and he's America's hero, right? Everybody's in love with Captain America and like Bucky would almost like admiringly speak to Steve about Cap, like, oh, isn't Captain America the greatest? And Steve would be like, yeah, son, he's great.
It's like a Clark Kent Superman thing. Right?
Exactly. It's like he has the helmet on. Oh, we have no idea who he is. And so it's actually quite funny if you read it because of all ways, it's just so interesting because I don't know that they could get away with this sort of storytelling in the modern age with this young man just hanging around an older man, and you know what I mean? Like it was so wholesome back in the day, I feel.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's difficult to tell storytelling, to have storytelling be that pure and be that wholesome anymore. But so what happens is that it's almost like a Superman scenario where, like Clark Kent would have to disrobe more or less, right? But with Steve and Cap, he would have to get into the outfit. So, True. So what happens is that Bucky quite literally is like looking for Steve, and he goes into his tent and Steve's putting on the outfit. He's changing into Captain America. He's like, oh, and then he's like, oh no. And then he just turns around and runs. He like goes away. He's like, oh my God. I shouldn't have seen that. But, of course Steve pursues him and is just like, hey kid, like don't worry. It's okay. Like it's funny because Bucky, I feel, was more excited than he was like, oh no, I'm in trouble. Like he was like, oh, you're Captain America. Like he's like relieved, which is great. And it's a testament of the relationship they start to build as a result,
Yeah.
And because Bucky is such an enthusiastic sort of gentleman at the time, it's like you can almost tell immediately like he's biting at the
Yep.
He's going for it. He's like, I want to be his sidekick. And so, of course, through some deliberation and maybe a bit of selfishness to just have a companion to begin with, because, he is operating solo for all this time.
Yeah.
Steve Rogers is. Steve enlists Bucky to become his sidekick. And they even get approval from the president to allow him to do so.
Wow.
So it's a big deal. And it's a super big deal for Bucky because, like, now he can be a part of something big. He wants to serve his country. He wants to protect people. Now he can do it without being labeled a 4F in the actual army. And he is Captain America's sidekick.
Wow. Imagine they went that direction in the MCU.
Dude, can you though? Like, Wow.
I don't know if I can.
I don't know if it would
I
have.
want to ask you, not because you obviously know a lot about Bucky
Yeah.
in the comics, and then
Yeah.
so the first Avenger, the movie,
Mm-hmm.
when you saw when Bucky died
Yeah.
and fell off the train,
Yeah.
did you think that the sequel to that movie was he was gonna come
Winter
back,
Soldier,
or not?
or
Maybe
just come back.
come back, and then maybe Winter Soldier, since you know that's the lore.
Well,
of it.
that's the thing, right? Like you're kind of like, oh shoot, Bucky died.
Yeah.
Like and at first, and because again it was so early in the MCU, it's almost like
That was 20. That was
where's
20.
this gonna go?
That was 2011. Yeah.
2011, right? And so it is very much like, where is this gonna go, and how are they gonna go
Yeah.
there? And also Winter Soldier was such a new concept, such a new
It was.
concept.
I think it kind of shifted.
Yeah.
Like storytelling in the MCU for sure.
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely. And so to take a risk on a character variation that was so new, and to bring that in to the theatrical, like I was just like, dude, if they do that, it's either going to be like amazing or it's going to be like,
People aren't gonna get it.
yeah, and he's going to be gone after one film. And
Ooh.
thankfully, that's not what happened.
It's a top 3 film in the MCU.
Easily. And so to then, pivot from first Avenger and then the films that came in between, and then go to Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Yeah,
Oh my God,
it's crazy.
incredible! I remember the first time that trailer dropped, and I was like, "Oh, dang, they did it!"
They're
And
doing- yeah.
They pulled it off, which is my favorite part about all of it. And so,
Yeah.
before we get into Winter Soldier, which is
Yeah.
right there. So back in the comics, the two fight side by side in World War II, and by its final days. So in the books, he does progress. So in the 4 years that Bucky and Cap are a thing, and they're fighting, they're doing the dynamic duo thing.
Yep.
By the final days of 1945, Bucky is indeed 20 in the books. So he's a young man. He's right there in the threshold of being a, quote unquote adult of 21. And this is exactly where the turning point in his life occurs. So this is going to be a little different because, like in the film, like you just mentioned, they're on the freight train and, they're having a fight with Hydra, and he tumbles out.
Yeah.
And Cap's about to grab him, and he falls.
Just-
He falls to his inevitable and sad death.
Apparent death.
Apparent death. This one's a bit different because how does it pan out in the MCU? He had the shield. He was shooting. Then the guy had an explosive missile or something.
Yeah,
Or-
it was one of those Hydra weapons that was created from the Tesseract.
Yeah.
He blasts
The
he
shield.
blasts a shield. It ricochets. It
Yeah.
opens up a hole in the wall, and then they both get sucked out.
Right.
And then
Steve,
Cap grabs Bucky by the hand and then
And-
tries to save, and he just
Yeah.
slips.
And then all the foreshadowing of the left hand and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So in the comics, it's instead a plane. So there's this plane armed with explosives, and of all people, Baron Zemo is the one that launches the craft outward. And so Cap and Buck, in their truest of comic book forms, jump on top of the plane, like on top of the plane.
Jeez.
So it's not like a big Boeing.
Yeah.
It's like a smaller plane, obviously, 1940s. And when the explosion goes off, Cap falls off, crashes into the depths of the ocean.
Yeah.
Bucky, on the other hand, he attempts to defuse. Oh, sorry, this is before the explosion. He attempts to defuse the bomb and he fails.
Okay.
And so his body is never found. And so he's just missing, and everyone's like, they both died.
They both
just
died.
Conclude
in KIA. Whatever.
they're all exactly. They're both KIA, and so they're assumed dead by the U.S. military. To which they then it's kind of funny. They have like the cemetery where all the vets are buried, and they have these two giant statues of Captain America and Bucky, his pal Bucky. Yeah, and so they have this monument created for the two of them, and then it's so interesting for Bucky to have even survived this kind of catastrophic fall for either version.
Yeah.
Because he was not enhanced at all.
Yeah, exactly.
He was completely normal
regular
human
man.
being. Yeah, he was just a regular man. And in the film, in Captain America, number one, he was, I think, 28, 20. Yeah, he was a little older.
Something like that. Late 20s.
Yeah, he
for
was
sure.
late 20s. And so even with the age difference, it's just like, how could a human being have survived that fall? But, despite having no enhancements whatsoever, let alone the Infinity Formula, which is what we're going to talk about a little later too, or the Super Soldier Serum and the Vita Rays and all that stuff. He didn't have any of that stuff like Cap did. So despite it all, Bucky is found alive by the USSR, General Vasily Karpov, and he had lost his left arm, brain damage, and amnesia. And then Karpov sends him to Department X. And so if you remember from our Black Widow episode, we touched a little bit on Department X, and they're essentially like the founders of the Red Room and all of those operatives that basically Russia has in the MCU and in the comics. And so Department X was essentially responsible for producing super soldiers for the KGB. And so they took Buck. They were like, all right, here we go. We got ourselves another one.
Jeez.
And that's how he disappears into what becomes the Winter Soldier, who in the MCU appeared in 2014's Captain America, the Winter Soldier, directed by the Russo brothers. I miss them. I miss them a lot.
I do.
God.
I do. They deserve a break though.
They
deserve.
They really do. They earned that break. So in the comics, the Winter Soldier, obviously a different set of creators because this is again much later, created by Ed Brubaker and Steve Epting. If you listen to Captain America episode, we say that name a lot. Both names a lot. And so Winter Soldier's first appearance is Captain America Volume 5, Number 1, cover dated November 2004.
Whoa.
Much later. So he is a more modern character. He's only been in the universe for
It's 18 years.
16, 17 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. That's why, like I said, to see him brought into the MCU at 2000.
That early?
Yes.
Oh.
Was like, holy Toledo. He's a fresh off the factory chain.
So someone read that run and was like,
this.
Let's bring him in. Yeah.
Exactly. And so this one, I'm not even going to make you guess because this comic, and I have this comic, you've seen it. The first appearance of Winter Soldier, the highest grade, currently on eBay is 9.8.
Nice.
You can grab it for a cool $9.50.
Wow.
Yeah, not too bad. Lowest grade is a 9.6, and you can grab that for $125. Those are, however, the standard variant versions. I have the variant with Bucky on it instead, so that one's a little different.
A little bit.
But I mean, that's still a big chunk of change for a character that's only been around for so long.
Yeah, no, that's crazy.
Yeah, and especially if you wanted a copy graded and signed by Ed Brubaker and Steve Epting, that goes for about $5,000 to $6,000.
Whoa. Jeez.
Yep.
This is.
So if you've been sitting on comic books that are signed or that are key issues, and you're like, I guess I'll get it graded, just pay the $50 and get it graded.
Get graded. I mean,
just do it. Just get you some bricks already. And so the Winter Soldier. So now this is the point, obviously. Now Bucky's equipped with his bionic arm. He has no recollection of the past, so the amnesia's stuck in the books. And so he's simply known and regarded as a covert assassin, given the name by the Russians. And the interesting thing about, and I don't know if they show this super duper much in the films at all, aside the two obvious upgrades he gets, but in the books, as time passes, his arm does get upgraded with the technology. And so when they do flashbacks and such of this character, you'll see sometimes the mechanics like keeping his arm together are like really janky.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like it doesn't look as smooth and sleek as it does
now.
Yeah. It goes through all these iterations of just like you can just see, and it also depends on the artist, of course. But he's always kind of had this cool arm. It's only gotten cooler over time, and so unfortunately, poor Bucky. he's just in and out of cryo, sometimes months, sometimes years. And so this poor guy's just getting stretched, as time goes by. And they would also, he would have these moments of lapsing.
Yeah.
And which is something they do kind of explore, I feel, in Civil War.
Yes.
Because he's off the grid and he's, you know what I mean?
He's going through that. He could easily slip back into it.
Right.
But he's not as displaced as he thought he was.
Right. The moment that strikes me when I think about this part when it comes to the comic books versus the MCU is that that moment when who sees it? Is it Steve? Somebody sees him from across the street and he makes eye contact and you kind of see Bucky get cautious, and it's after he's buying the plums.
Oh yeah. Okay,
and
so
it's you kind of see him go from he's Bucky Barnes when he's buying the plums, but by the time he makes eye contact and he realizes I have to run, you can kind of see he's turning into the Winter Soldier a bit, to all the way to the point where he's forced to fight Steve in his own apartment.
Yes.
See, and so it's kind of like that. I feel in the books, he started to kind of lapse, and he would aid people that he wasn't supposed to, or at least help civilians more or less. He disappears off the grid. He trained other sleeper agents that he wasn't supposed to.
Oh.
So he's doing all this sort of, undercover work, off the radar work, apart from what his missions are supposed to be. And so that's when they're like, oh, come here. And then they put him back under. And it's oh, well, there goes Bucky. He's down for another 2 years. And so, along the way, he encounters Natasha in the books. And
nice.
we've discussed this quite a bit in the Black Widow episode. And so if you're interested in much more about them, you can definitely go back and listen to that. But that's kind of how he kind of gets roped into, tangled in her web, if you will, because he is having these moments of realizing oh, I'm just a normal, quote unquote, normal human being and not just a Winter Soldier. But of course, along the way, he meets many people, including Natasha and also Wolverine, who we've talked very little about.
Oh, wow.
But so I wanted to very quickly talk about how they even interact, and
especially Wolverine and the Winter Soldier. Jeez.
Right. And so what is it? Bucky or Winter Soldier was basically in Canada, and he was on his own operation, own mission, and he helped Logan escape the facility after he had been laced with the adamantium. So if you imagine X-Men number 1, 2000, and that whole scenario of Hugh Jackman going under and coming out and becoming an animal and he's clawing everybody. Imagine throwing the Winter Soldier into that scenario, that he's the one opening up the door or getting him out or whatever it is.
That's how he's going to get introduced in the MCU, right there.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Can you imagine? But then they change it. It's Madripoor, and he's there, and it's Chariot. Like, hey.
The stage is set.
Exactly.
The stage has been set.
You never know. And so, so they've got some history as well, and I know, I think we mentioned it in the Cap episode. Cap and Logan did as well because, the war buddies and stuff. But the relationship that Winter Soldier, or at least the link that Winter Soldier has to Wolverine, is especially unique because Bucky was actually assigned to kill Logan's wife, Itsu. And so Itsu was pregnant with their child at the time.
Okay.
And unfortunately, Bucky succeeded in killing her. But the child, being part mutate,
and part human, whatever,
managed to claw himself out of
that's dark.
Itsu's belly.
That is dark and disturbing.
And he survived. And now he is a huge dickbag.
Oh, nice. Nice.
I
wouldn't expect anything less. For being completely honest.
Daken is he was once upon a time on the Dark Avengers, and he was the one posing as Wolverine. He has 2 claws instead of 3.
Okay.
Yeah. He's a very interesting character. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe we'll get to see him in the MCU one day. But yeah, so that's how those two are linked. Years later, and even with the revival of the Avengers and superhero teams, Bucky had barely aged. Even a decade since 1945. So again, we're thinking about like the timeline, right? Because it's pretty convoluted. But if you're doing the math and you're going about like, okay, so he was 20 in 1945. He's been in and out of cryo. He's been, all over the place. That essentially puts him canonically in the ballpark of around 31 to 40 years old.
Okay.
Now.
Okay.
Which kind of checks because Sebastian Stan is 40 or 39.
No, he's 40.
Yeah.
I would have at least said 35.
No, he's 40. He's turning 40, I think.
Damn.
Yeah.
What a man.
Yeah. So way to go. Great casting there. And then fun fact, there used to be a golden rule in comics called the Bucky clause.
Okay.
That no one in comic books could stay dead for long.
Okay. I think you brought this up.
Did I? Because I feel like they did not want to do that with Gwen Stacy.
Okay.
They were like, she has to stay dead, but then they still brought her back.
R.I.P. Gwen Stacy in all forms of media.
I know, jeez. Oh my gosh. And so on the heels of the Bucky clause, after his initial death, so like we're talking 1945, he was revived in 2004, and then again in 2011. The timing of that one, by the way.
Oh, wow. Okay.
When he was at last given the Infinity Formula. So keep in mind, Bucky becomes the Winter Soldier in the books.
Yeah.
But apart from any sort of super soldier serum, he is simply Bucky Barnes.
With a mechanical arm.
With a mechanical arm.
Yes.
And then finally in 2011, he's given the Infinity Formula, which is the same formula that comic book Nick Fury has that keeps him sort of immortal or at least aging very slowly, which is how they kind of explain, how is Fury around still?
Yeah. What? I mean, how so long? Yeah.
Because he has been around since Captain America's time. Yeah.
Jeez.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. And of course, Natasha Romanoff has something of it. As well as Bobby Morse, Mockingbird.
Wow.
Yeah. So that right there strikes me as a very interesting move, especially for them to make. But it made a whole lot of sense to immediately kind of give MCU Bucky that allowance. Like how are you going to put him against Captain America
if he's just a
If he's just
regular
Bucky
like military guy with a mechanical arm.
Yeah, exactly.
So you need to amp him up a little bit. And
Right. And then, of course, they make the excuse that, it wasn't the same exact one. So that's why it's not as good and it's not as perfected as the one that Cap got. So it makes him the golden child it makes Cap the golden child of the super soldier serum.
Yeah.
Even more. So are you ready for one of your 1.2, 1.5 pop quizzes?
1.5?
There's only 1.5. I didn't really want to go too heavy on the pop quizzes on this one because it's just a dense character.
I am ready to flex my muscles.
Yeah, okay. So, pop quiz, Jeff.
Oh, no.
You got to know this one.
I hope.
This will wake you up. What are the Winter Soldier's 10 activation words?
Crap. Oh, my God. Oh, God.
Oh, come on. This is tough.
It is tough because it's like
unless you're a Bucky stan.
Yeah.
you
Or
don't
if
know
it's like you also like when I've watched it and I've seen that sequence multiple times.
Yeah.
I'm always just paying attention to like them saying it in Russian rather than like reading.
Same though. Same.
Rather than reading the like one. There's one word I know for sure. I don't know why out of all the phrases this is the one I remember.
Yeah.
But it's freight train.
Yeah.
That's one of them that I remember.
Yeah.
But for some reason I'm never reading the English subtitles. I just want to listen to them hear how it sounds in Russian.
Yeah, same.
Freight train and homecoming. I know. I'll be completely honest.
Okay.
It's freight train and homecoming
all right.
because
So
Yeah.
So here they are in order. You tapped out real quick. I mean,
Well, because it's like there's no possible way. Like and I love that sequence. Like it's fun.
Yeah.
It's like that's such a great like.
And I think we've
like,
seen it like 4 times.
Yeah, that's
maybe?
such a good like, especially when we were talking
Yeah.
about relapses
Yeah.
earlier. Like it's such a good like, oh
Yeah.
no, he's still triggered.
Yeah.
But then, no,
Yeah.
I just Fried Trade and Homecoming. That's it.
Okay, in order.
Uh-huh.
For me, I realized it helps better when you have word association. So if you think of the character and you think of these terms as more than just what they are, and you think of how they relate to him, then it starts to stick a lot better. At least that's what works for me. Or you can do what other people do and just rewatch it over and over and over again. Because I'm sure people have this tattooed on their body somewhere.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, the Bucky stance. So in order, Winter Soldier's 10 activation words. Are you ready? Those of you listening at home: longing, rusted, furnace, daybreak, 17, benign, 9, homecoming, 1, freight car.
Freight car. See, I got 1.5.
Let's see. Bucky, freight car, longing, rusted.
You know, it's
Do you
funny.
not want treats? He doesn't want treats. He doesn't care.
You know, it's funny. What if like anytime someone says that, it's like Beetlejuice,
Yeah, exactly.
and then just a big someone just gets like murdered, just straight up assassinated.
Oh my god, T-boned by a bionic arm. Oh my gosh, that'd be so crazy. So those are the 10 activation words, which thankfully Bucky has gotten over in his time.
He has now, thank God.
Yeah.
Benign. Yeah, I would have never gotten
Yeah.
What?
Oh yeah, and then I wanted to show you these, and I got sidetracked. But here are. So this is kind of a light. I'm showing Jeff a couple of pages from the book.
Cool.
Yeah, and so that this is early Bucky. So this is maybe Bucky as Winter Soldier, maybe when he's 22, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
And if you swipe to the that's him a little later, which is more familiar because he's got the longer hair. So basically, the Russians didn't give him a haircut. That's what happens.
This is reading this text reminds me about the scene between Cap and Nat when they're talking about like what's on this drive, and it's like and then Nat's like the people call him the Winter Soldier.
Winter Soldier.
He has 12 dozen assassinations, and he's in, he's out. He's a ghost story.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
yeah,
oh, wow.
that's exactly that's what the vibe is like, right?
Yeah.
You can hear the crackling of the flame and just this stoic ghost of a man who's just
bye bikini lines.
exactly. Oh yeah, I'm sure you look terrible in them. Is that what it says?
Yeah.
I'm sure you look terrible in them. Aw. Capnat. So let's jump into powers. Like we mentioned earlier, Bucky Barnes did not have a single iota of a superpower.
Yep.
Pre-serum, pre-formula. And so in the comics, he did excel at master martial arts, marksman, expert shield fighter, dubbed the best natural fighter by General Phillips, who is Tommy Lee Jones in the first film.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He's also a master of stealth, master acrobat, advanced scout, so he's very good at hunting and tracking. He had weapons proficiency. It was multilingual. He's a great tactician, spy, and now, of course, assassin. And same goes for, I think, the MCU version. I mean, he seemed to be an incredible marksman because he was always behind the sniper.
Yes.
He was a sniper shooter in the first film, I believe. And then he could take a punch. He could throw one too.
Seems like a well seasoned.
Yeah.
I like from Winter Soldier the first.
Yeah.
I always think that he was just great with like artillery and with guns, like and he just has his metal arm as like that's like his like it's not I wouldn't say backup of an ability, but it's like he can keep up with most because of like the arm, like strength wise.
Yeah.
But I always thought he was good with guns because the way that he was using guns and artillery. in the movie, I was like, oh, this guy's a seasoned vet,
right,
for sure.
Yeah. Right. Like, and I think they do mention in the books that he was what was it, well trained in all like general aspects. He was like almost like a top tier soldier. Like he was really on it. He knew his stuff, and he was just.
He's a very concise soldier. He doesn't waste any movements, type of thing.
Exactly. And so in the films, again, he's probably got most of, if not a lot of the attributes that the comic book version has, but he is well equipped in the first Avenger. He used an M1941 Johnson rifle.
Yep.
Like I mentioned, and which leads me to the fact that in the comics, firearms are like Bucky's thing. That is what he does.
Yeah.
Like it's so interesting because they immerse the comic book version of his character so much in his gear that you almost don't think of the arm because it's obviously powerful.
Yeah.
But he's more of a tactician when it comes to his weaponry.
Yeah.
And I love that. That's what I love about
That's
this
what
character.
I've got like in all his appearances, like even in his short appearance in Infinity War when Rocket was like, oh, I'll get that arm, and like he's just using a gun, like a big gun, and you're like, okay, like he always has a gun. It's not only his arm. He has to have like artillery with
artillery, and impressive artillery at that. Which like some of my favorite parts of Captain America: The Winter Soldier are when he's just using his other weaponry, like the knives. That's why I bought the knife. Like I bought that
so good.
that hand blade because the Gerber, because it's just, I love the way that the character doesn't always rely on the arm. It comes in handy.
It does, yeah.
But he is very well known for his usages of the blades and the guns and stuff. And even in Falcon and Winter Soldier, when he has the flashback or the nightmare as the Winter Soldier, and he pulls the knife from like his back holster.
Yeah.
And so cool.
Yeah, his fight scenes are
good.
really fun.
I mean, like I said, like The Winter Soldier is my mom's #1 favorite Marvel movie, tied with Deadpool of all things. But she loves Winter Soldier. I know, it's like the spectrum. But she loves not only did the Russos do an incredible job with the film, but also it was very like 007 spy movie-esque.
The tone of Winter Soldier
was
so great.
Yeah, and the way that the fighting is and the whole operative.
I mean, that knife fight between him and Cap, and then you've seen the behind the scenes of him practicing his knife flip and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're like, wow.
And you're like, it's actually him.
Yeah, which
is incredible as well. And so in the books, the same goes for Bucky. He's always equipped with, to the nines with some awesome, firearm.
Yeah.
But they're so important to the Winter Soldier, Bucky, of course, to the point that his choice arms have explosive palm print sensors.
Okay.
So I don't know if this was in a Bond movie, but I know it's almost identical to Star-Lord in the comics. Star-Lord in the comics, I don't know if they did this in the game too, but his element guns, they're formatted to his DNA.
Yes.
So if someone else tries to use it,
can't.
They don't work, right?
Yeah.
And so a similar situation goes for Bucky in that if someone were to try and use his gun, like say he was in a fight, his opponent got a hold of his.
They can't use it.
It's gonna explode in their hand.
Oh gosh!
And then opens up the opportunity for him to come back and combat that, which is like sick.
That's insane.
It's so cool.
Scary.
Yeah, it's really scary. And so because I mentioned the rifle in Captain America: First Avenger, as the Winter Soldier in the Winter Soldier film, he uses a Sig Sauer. Sawyer P22 6R. And then when it comes to his actual powers as the Winter Soldier, again, it does kind of vary because, like, what do you even say about the MCU version, right? He's super strong and he's obviously got endurance and he's got stamina and he's super powered in that he's got advanced strengths and and all that stuff, but in the comics, they do define it per the Infinity Formula. He has enhanced physical conditioning, so speed, strength, stamina, agility, etc. The cybernetic enhanced physiology, so that's the arm. So I like that they kind of go into the body of the mechanics of the actual arm.
Yeah.
And so they note that it's got strength. It also has sensors and tactical reload, reach, discharge, and defense. So even though he's right-handed,
Yes.
he has a tactical reload system in his bionic arm that allows him to, like, you know how impressive Scarlet, but Natasha's reloading in the Infinity War trailer that they, or whatever they
The
cut
Endgame
out.
trailer? Yeah.
where it's really quick. Like, imagine that, but times 2, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's like the Winter Soldier
That
in the
makes
comic
sense.
books.
Yeah.
And also,
yeah, because when you're holding a gun in your shot hand, it's usually.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. And so he's very good at that. And he even has, this is the biggest contrast that I think gets overlooked very often in the comics, is that he has a retractable blade
Inside the arm?
In the arm.
Wow.
So I don't think he even uses it that often, if ever.
It looks scary. Oh, it
'Cause
sounds scary.
Doesn't need to, because he has his guns.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, I think that accounts for all the times that he's not pulling it from the back sheath or something. And then, of course, there's tech that also proved to be present that allows Bucky to mask the arm to look human or natural.
Yes.
So there's a part in, I don't remember if it was a Black Widow book or a Winter Soldier book, but in the panels, Bucky has 2 natural arms, and it's because he's using the veil to mask the bionic, because apparently it made Natasha feel a little better at times.
Sure.
It made her more comfortable, I guess, which they haven't done in the MCU, and I think that would be, well, if they want to cover it up and just let Sebastian Stan use both of his natural arms.
Yeah.
They could be like, it's the photostatic veil. Save some CGI and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's just too cool. Like, how are you gonna cover that up, man?
I know. It's so cool. Like, yeah.
It's too cool. Okay, so here's the other pop quiz that isn't really a pop quiz. It's a half pop quiz. So, Jeff,
Okay.
how much can the Winter Soldier lift, brah?
Oh God, this is like that same question from
Yeah.
from what episode was that? How many tons can someone lift?
I think maybe it was either, I don't know, I want to say Vision, maybe?
Oh, it was Vision.
It was Vision.
It was Vision.
huh?
It was
Yeah.
Vision. Yeah. Ooh. How much can he lift?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
well,
there's no established number, but I do have some science math stuff.
Okay. Well, I'm going based off what I've seen in the MCU.
Oh, perfect. Like, that's exactly what you should be doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the first example I have, I mean, this is the very surface level. Obviously, like, if Spider-Man can stop a punch from him, that's obviously, and we know there's a lot of force going in there.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, like, strength-wise, they're like almost at the same level because they're both enhanced individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then what else? He rips things off like nothing, like a Band-Aid, like ooh, God, what else? What else has he like manhandled? I forget.
I mean, the motorcycle is a big
Oh,
one.
that's right. I forget about that.
That's a
Okay, oh
big
yeah,
one.
he grabbed him,
Yeah.
got out the air.
I love that because of
It is
the
really-
sound that they used in that exact moment.
The
too.
movement, the camera work on
Yeah,
it,
so good.
sound design on, yeah. I want to say at least like how much he can lift, just with like off that arm, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't want to overshoot it, but then again, he is still a human being and not like a android.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, like comparing like him lifting something to like Thor lifting something, a god.
A god.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I want to say a half a ton.
Oh, that's not bad. That's actually pretty good.
Yeah. I was gonna say a whole ton, but I'm like, oh,
No,
that's
that's actually very close.
also a half a ton.
That's very close. Okay, so when I did my research, I was like, is this anywhere? Like, I really wanted to find a scientific, mathematical sort of aspect to this character. And so the rationale that people had lined up was that, okay, so Cap, basing it on Cap and what they have lifted. So Cap in the, the Captain America Wants You reel, he's lifting a motorcycle with 3 women on it or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So you guesstimate that is about 900
Okay.
to 1,200 pounds.
Yes.
And then you take that and then you settle it with, okay, well, the Winter Soldier picked up a motorcycle like it was a book.
Yes.
Turned it around, jumped on it, and took off. Okay, so let's say that's about 900 pounds or so, too. And then you kind of break it a little even. There's 2,000 pounds in a ton.
Yes.
So making 1,200
Hey.
half a ton. So well done.
Yes.
Finally.
Let's go.
Yay. You got it. Yeah. So yeah, I would say a ton.
Okay, cool.
About almost a ton, half a ton
Yeah.
to a ton.
I was like, oh,
Yeah.
maybe 3. I was like 500. I was like,
Because and then the added factor of, because of the discussion with Spider-Man and how he was so easily able to stop Bucky's arm.
Yeah.
And of course, he's got the spider aspect and all of that good stuff. But, if you think about the pressure and
Yeah.
so you basically Peter's got like 3 ton, 4 ton to Cap and Bucky's 1,
Probably.
which is incredible.
Yeah. Also Cap almost tried to kill him.
Yeah, exactly.
Drop the whole walkway on him.
Exactly. Which, can you imagine? I didn't even look up how much that must
That's a lot.
weigh, but
It's definitely a lot.
That's and he's still kind of
Queens.
he had it. He still had it. Oh my god.
Queens.
Oh, Spidey. Oh, legend.
So
Yeah. So well done, Jeff.
Sick.
Very good. And then that brings us to main adversaries.
Ooh.
I mean, these are absolutely given. My notes here, I just have Hydra. Duh. Hydra
Basically,
is,
dude,
that's the entire thing. Yeah, I mean, Hydra is a big thing. If you for some reason, haven't seen The Winter Soldier, I mean, my God, go watch it.
Please.
Yes. But I will say that the MCU counterparts to their comic book counterparts, it is quite different in that they're not as I don't want to say relevant or important, but they're not as prominent when it comes to Bucky in the comic books as they are in
really?
the MCU. Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like in the MCU they're very much heightened the they had to they had to build the
Hydra was part of
Yeah.
his identity at some point.
yeah, like they really had to build that exposition of like, okay, well, how does he get here and how does he become this and how does this factor into the big world, of course. So I'm gonna start more on the MCU side than comic on for this part, but let's start with Red Skull, portrayed by Hugo Weaving and Raz Marquand. He gets an honorable mention because Buck was captured during the first Avenger. But, in the comics, not unlike the films, Red Skull was more of a Cap villain than he was Bucky's. So even though they've had some crossover in the comics, especially when Bucky becomes Captain America, which we'll talk about a little bit later, he actually went toe-to-toe with Red Skull's daughter, Sin. Yeah, if you can believe it. And I think I did mention her at one point, but Red Skull has a daughter named Sin, and she has a literal red skull because of I think it was I don't know if she was burned or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's insane. She's actually insane. But she is more of Bucky's adversary than Red Skull ever was.
Got
At least from my perspective. And then, of course, in the MCU, next up is Arnim Zola, portrayed by Toby Jones. So he essentially captured and tortured Bucky, inevitably helping and converting him into the Winter Soldier with the Hydra equivalent of the Super Soldier Serum in the films. And then in the books, it's kind of like Red Skull again. He's far more prominent in the film than he is in the comics, and I don't think they even have much overlap, if any, when it comes to the comics. And then that brings us to Vasily Karpov, who, I swear, if you're not paying attention, you don't even realize he's in the films. You're just like, there's this guy. He's this guy that Bucky is like protecting. And so he's the guy that he's he's portrayed by Gene Farber first and foremost. But he was, I believe he's the guy that when they show the flashback of in Falcon and Winter Soldier, what am I saying? Winter Soldier? Civil War. Of the 5 super soldiers that get created.
Oh, yeah.
And they're all going crazy.
Yeah.
He's the guy that Bucky's protecting. That's Vasily Karpov. And so he handled the Winter Soldier during the plan to assassinate the Starks in 1991. So that was all his idea. And then he was later murdered by Helmut Zemo. That's the newer Zemo, in 2016 after acquiring the Winter Soldier book. So he's the guy that gets dipped upside down in his home. Remember when Helmut was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I hit your lawn, and can I come use your phone?" That's Vasily Karpov. For those of you who don't know who he is, and so in the books, he actually had more similarities than the previous 2 we just mentioned, but. He did assist in Bucky's initial brainwashing in the comics as well. And if you can believe it, Barnes was assigned to be his bodyguard later in life. So you're thinking like, okay, this man helped brainwash a 20-year-old Bucky Barnes into the Winter Soldier in 1945. And then later, when this guy is maybe 80 years old or 90 years old, Bucky's then reassigned to him to be his bodyguard until his death. So,
wow.
Yeah, he had him at both points of his life, and it's just like, it's just kind of sad.
Pain.
Bucky knows pain well.
He's
so much pain.
Yeah. Yeah, literally.
Yeah. And then that brings us to Baron Helmut Zemo, portrayed by Daniel Bruhl. First seen in Captain America, The Winter Soldier. Last seen in The Falcon and The Winter Soldier. God, there's so much to talk about with him, yet not. Like, him as an
Was he in The Winter Soldier?
Was it The Winter Soldier? Was it not The Winter Soldier? No, it was
Civil War.
Sorry.
Okay.
Civil War.
I was like, wait. No. Was it?
Yeah, no.
Was
you're
it a
right.
post-credit scene? I forget.
No, you're right. And so I feel like Zemo obviously has room for his own episode. He really does.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. And so he's the son of the original Baron Zemo. So they kind of talked about this in Falcon and Winter Soldier.
That's a little bit.
Yeah. And does he not say that even his chauffeur guy, like he's been with the family?
He's been with the family.
Yeah, right there. So he is the son of Baron Zemo, Heinrich. And they come from a long line of Baron Zemos. They're all Baron Zemos.
I'm a Baron. Jeez.
And so, do you even want to guess how many Baron Zemos there are in the comics?
73.
No.
I was like,
that'd be amazing. But in all seriousness, there are a whopping 13.
Okay, that's still a lot.
Yeah, 13 Baron Zemos, and so they've all been kind of. I don't know if they've all been evil or diabolical, but they got a reputation.
I mean, there's
a
foundation for each of them.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I wrote in my notes here, I was like, speak or save, because it's hilarious. Because of the okay, again, I'm just gonna say it. There's 13 of them. Bear with me here. All Zemos again.
Okay.
Harbin, Hadmar, Heller, Helbert, Helmut, Hackett, Hartwig, Hillard, Hoffman, Hobart, Herman, Heinrich, and Helmut.
Nice. I mean, talk about alliteration.
So it's like a perfect scenario when it comes to the comics, because it's like, if one dies, they can just be like, well, that was the Helmut Zemo of 1953.
Yeah.
Next generation. And so I feel like almost he's ice cold, if not colder, than the Baron Zemo we see in the films, because in the books he sent Bucky back to World War II with the power of Kobik. We mentioned Kobik in Captain America.
Yes.
Kobik is a sentient cosmic cube. That basically human tesseract, human version of a tesseract, right?
Yikes.
So during that whole storyline, Baron Zemo got a hold of this thing, and he's like, of all things that he does, he sends Bucky back to World War II, which is just like, you want somebody to have PTSD?
Like, come on.
Sheesh, yeah.
Come on, dude.
Yeah, exactly. And then, and he's, I see now why more than ever they chose to have Baron Zemo kind of be his like villain counterpart when it comes to the MCU because of the presence he has in the comics.
Yeah.
Because when Bucky was Cap, there's this whole thing that, again, we'll talk about at the tail end of all of this, but Helmut is essentially the one who exposes that one, because Cap was a secret identity again.
Yes.
So he exposes to the world that Bucky is Captain America, which then exposes that the Winter Soldier was
Captain America. Yep.
Basically sends him to prison.
Oh my gosh.
As a fact. Yeah, as a result of that. So he's like, he loves the drama when it comes to Bucky.
Oh, we can tell.
Yeah, right. It's a lot.
I mean, that's why I kind of like that's where they went in Civil War, because I think a lot of the antagonists in MCU movies up until that point, it's always just been this big bad,
Oh yeah, same.
like person,
Yeah.
like I'm trying to take over the universe, or I'm trying to destroy this, I'm trying to destroy that,
Yeah.
take over this, take over that, and then come Civil War, it's just like Zemo gets introduced, and it's like he's not even doing anything. He's playing like the biggest psychological warfare game.
He's Charles Manson.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
he's like I don't have to do anything.
Yeah. It wasn't me.
I just gotta
was-
if I just show them this, they're gonna implode on themselves.
Oh yeah, what does he say? He was like, what does he say? And he's just like, oh, then I can just have them destroy each other.
Oh yes,
What is that?
Yes,
that
he's
line?
like I could stop the Avengers
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah.
But why would I do it when they can destroy themselves?
Something like that. Yeah.
And just by showing off that that Bucky killed Tony's parents.
Exactly.
And
Which is
and,
like,
and the kicker is that
Yeah.
and that Cap knew, and it's like, oh shoot.
yeah, that's the turning point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's like one layer and then topped off.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really, really clever. And then the added aspect of he was Sokovian, and that his country was basically plateaued by the Avengers, and he lost his family, and that's why. But I did love that lead up, and I think that's what kind of fed my theory about Moon Knight, that Helmut was always listening to the phone messages, but then they ended up being old, and it's because his family was dead.
Yes.
And so that's why I was like, oh, maybe Steven is not actually speaking to his mother, and it's just a phone recording or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I got it from, is because of Zemo. But yeah, he was just a very cleverly created, quote unquote, villain.
Yeah.
For
like
the
him bombing
films.
the UN, and then them blaming it on Bucky.
Yeah.
And it was just like, whoa, this guy, he was just like next level thinking.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Exactly. It's just diabolical. It's completely diabolical, and that's what makes a great villain, I think, too.
exactly. That's what I think too.
Yeah,
Like
completely
sometimes,
human, just a diabolical person.
Thanos was both of those.
Yeah, it's very
That's
true.
why he was so
Yeah.
great. He was smart and
Yeah.
tactical, but he's also strong as hell.
Yeah, exactly. And I love these kinds of characters too. And so I'm curious what they're going to do with him
Now
that he's back in Wakanda, or in Wakanda, because he was in the prison the original time, right?
yes.
Yeah. So we'll see where he goes. But yeah, these last two, yeah, I guess they're adversaries in a way, but the flag smashers. So we
okay.
have the flag smashers in Falcon and Winter Soldier, led by Carly Morgenthau, portrayed by Aaron Kellyman. So refresher on the flag smashers. They were against the Global Repatriation Council, or the GRC.
GRC, yes.
Yeah, formed to assist those displaced after the snap. So they were trying to do good for humanity that had survived, that weren't snapped away. And Carly believed that the GRC cared more about the lost and recovered than the survivors. So they were just basically fighting for the man.
Really?
Yeah. So
Gosh.
that's the whole thing about their basis, was that people were so like, oh, you were snapped. Oh, how can we help you? And then whereas they were like, well, all these people had to go 5 years without help.
Oh, so GRC, I'm trying to
Yeah.
remember like the show. Okay.
So in the books, and I think you might be a little familiar with this part, they were not a group of people called the Flag Smashers.
Mm-hmm.
It was indeed one individual who was a male character named Flag Smasher.
Okay.
And so this is probably the biggest contrast of all of at least Bucky's villains or adversaries. And so Flag Smasher, there's a hyphen in between. The importance of the hyphen. Flag Smasher's civilian name was Carl Morgenthau.
Okay.
So very close. And so his ordeal was that he believed humanity needed to eradicate the concept of countries and nationalism that made people feel superior to those of different nationalities.
The definition of a flag smasher right there. Like,
yeah. And so, he actually in the comic books has zero ties to Bucky in the books. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, he's another peripheral character where he's in that world of U.S. agents and S.H.I.E.L.D. and Nick Fury and Army, anybody, Captain America, etc. Not necessarily directly affiliated with Bucky Barnes. So I don't know. We might have to revisit him for Falcon if that ends up being a thing.
yeah.
And then last but not least, when it comes to adversaries or quote unquote adversaries, everyone's favorite Captain America, John Walker.
Oh.
Portrayed by Wyatt Russell, the true son of Ego, a.k.a. Kurt Russell.
Jeez.
First and last scene in Falcon and Winter Soldier. So, real quick.
Guy's a menace.
He's a menace.
He's a menace.
Say it in her JJ voice. Come on.
Man,
Say
he's
it.
a menace. I'm not John Walker. He's a menace. He's probably teaming up with Spider-Man. Who I need photos of ASAP Parker.
Oh my god. Yeah, so yeah, he's essentially the people's cap in Falcon and Winter Soldier. It takes the serum at the end of the series. I forgot I wrote this. My bullet points are literally becomes the people's cap, takes the serum, sucks more than ever. I know. It gets better. My fourth one will likely get his ass beat by Yelena somehow. Dude, the me that does the homework is so different from the me on the show. And I'm just like, where are you? What was I going
That
through
would be a great battle, though.
when I wrote this?
I would love to see that.
I think she will. Because they're going to be on the same team. Or they're basically on the same team. Oh, yeah. She's going to... Oh, God, I can't wait. I want for her. I want her to sass him.
I wonder how all those characters come back or do something. Like,
I know. I don't know if it's going to be a show or is it going to be they're going to be somewhere else. We'll see, I guess.
It's that's right, because they're under the lady Louis Dreyfus character.
Yeah.
What was her name? Gosh. Constantine?
No, I was going to say Constantine too. Contessa. Oh my God.
It's Valentina.
Yeah. Oh, how did you just?
I saw you say V, and I was like, oh, it's Valentina.
Allegra de Fontaine.
Okay.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry for that. Yeah. Contessa. Where the hell did I get Contessa from? Valentina de Fontaine. The comic book John Walker, another character we can probably get into much later down the line with his own episode. He started as known as the Super Patriot with a hyphen in 1986 in the comics, and then became Captain America the following year.
Okay.
So he had a very swift thing. And you have to remember, once again, this is the time where there is not a Bucky Barnes floating around. So Bucky is not in the comics. He's still dead.
Yes.
And so they were like, okay, this is the 80s. We're in metal hair. We're about to embark on the 90s and the emo rock scene / grunge. Let's figure something out. And so they started making all these characters. They had Nomad, who wasn't Steve Rogers. They had various versions of Captain America. And then, of course, Super Patriot, who then becomes Captain America. And then his best known alias was U.S. Agent.
Yep.
which he became in 1989, and he still is to this day. So that's the last time we see Russell Wyatt in Falcon and Winter Soldier. And
Wyatt Russell.
Wyatt, did I say Russell Wyatt? Yeah, I did. Wyatt Russell. Thank you for catching that. So that's the last time we see him, and so I wonder, like, yeah, again, it's another one of those questions of like, when are we going to see U.S. Agent again, and you know, like, what's he going to be doing, and all that good stuff. And so in the comics, he didn't actually join the Thunderbolts until very recently, actually. Historically, having been on opposing teams. So yeah, we'll see what happens with John Walker down the line. And you know, in the series, it was kind of nice to see them, albeit it was very rushed, but in the last episode, kind of come together as a unified trio or a group of heroes that were helping people. And
yeah,
and I do feel like he is going to be kind of misguided wherever he goes next, because he thinks he's doing the right thing. And
yeah, I mean, yeah,
Valentina's
that's how
like,
it is in a lot of like movies now
Yeah.
too. Like, not to say that's a bad thing, but like people like say everyone thinks they're doing the right thing.
yeah,
Example, Wanda.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
But you know, so it's like, yeah, so to see where he goes, and like what kind of like missions or storylines like he intersects with.
Yeah.
That should be interesting, and I hope.
Yeah.
I hope Sebastian comes back too. Winter Soldier,
he
Winter
better.
Soldier, and Captain America come back.
Yeah, I was just saying to a friend the other day that this is the part, you know, the Winter Soldier and Falcon are kind of at that point where I get a little nervous, because even though they're not doing the traditional contracts anymore, they are at the 10-year mark.
Yes.
So it's kind of like, how much longer are you really going to be doing this?
Like, do you want to go back into it?
Yeah. And of course, you know, like Anthony Mackie is slated for Captain America 4.
4, yeah.
Which is great.
And
you
maybe.
assume that Sebastian Stan is coming back as Winter Soldier.
Exactly,
And,
yeah.
and both of them have expressed love for these characters. So I'm just hoping that actually sticks.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
But for now, let's move on to family, friends, and affiliations. This is kind of interesting for the comic book version, because he is a junior in the books, but his father's name is George M. Barnes in the comics. So I don't know, maybe it's a grandpa or something. I don't know. But along with Bucky's mother, Winifred C. Barnes, the parents did die early in Bucky's life, and so his father died in an accident at Camp Lehigh, while his mother died when he and his sister Becca Barnes.
Nice.
I know,
That's
it's kinda
cool.
Cute. We're young children. And so in the MCU, they're also named George and Winifred. No details about the death, but apparently it's a very sore spot for the character.
Yeah.
I think the most that we got, at least in the family sense, is the notation in the memorial for Bucky in the Captain America exhibition.
Probably, yeah.
And so, like, if you see a screenshot of that wall, it's like a fallen comrade, and then it says like
Boom.
James Buchanan Bucky
Yeah.
Barnes was the son of blah 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 blah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so that's the only mention that you actually see of them, but you know, you see it in the character that, you know, like how supportive he is with Steve when his mom passes on, and you know, the remnants of what must have been Bucky's family in the MCU, and how it affects him is present there. I don't think they need to really explore that at all. I think it says it for him. And then again, you know, in the comics, his sister Becca P. Barnes Proctor. There's this really nice issue that was drawn by one of my favorites, Chris Samney, and he did, I think it was Black Widow. So he goes to visit his sister, who's in a convalescent home because she has Alzheimer's, and you know, it's quite similar to when Cap goes to visit Peggy. I almost feel like they kind of pulled it.
It's the same, yeah. They just applied it.
Very,
and,
very similar. Not that Cap and Peggy didn't actually have that in the books as well, but that when he comes in, she's like, "Jimmy, is that you? You look the same." And you know, it's like, oh, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And of course, by the end of the end of that part of the issue, he's like, "All right, well, I gotta go now, sis. I love you." And he takes off, and she talks to him like he's gonna come back, but she's essentially on her way out.
Yeah.
is what's happening. But that's a really great issue. You got to read that. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but in the show, so in the only actual notation of Rebecca Barnes in the MCU does exist in Falcon and Winter Soldier. And so I've mentioned this a few times to some people, but when he's on that date with Leah,
Yes.
she says, "Do you have any family?
Yeah.
Or were you close with your parents?" And he says, "I was."
Yeah.
And then she says, "Do you have any siblings?" And he says, "I have a sister."
Yeah.
So she's alive.
She's somewhere.
She's somewhere alive.
Yeah.
But they've not shown her yet.
Yeah.
And so she's got to be in her 90s, if not close to 100.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I don't know. I don't know if that was just kind of like a
Maybe just maybe an Easter egg. I don't know if it'll lead to
yeah.
anything, but
Nah,
I mean,
I don't think so
yeah.
either, which is sad, but that's okay. I mean, just to know that he knows that he has a sister out there is really nice. And then, like I mentioned on the memorial, they also mentioned 2 unknown siblings. So he has another sister and brother, or 2 brothers, or something, some combination of them. They're presumed deceased by now, of course. Yeah. And that's it for his family. Which brings us to Sharon Carter. Yay, Sharon Carter. And in the comics, more or less, I feel again she's a peripheral character. It's by proxy because of Cap.
Of course. Yep.
She's most active when Bucky is actually Captain America, actually, for the most part, and later in an arc called Captain America Reborn, where Steve Rogers got time displaced.
Yeah.
But when he eventually comes back, I have this still for you too. He comes back, and it's a rare moment in the books where it's 2 men at the Captain America helm. So here's a great comparison of what their outfits look like. Yeah, isn't that funny? Yeah.
What a difference.
It's very, very different.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so she was kind of instrumental during that storyline. But again, it's because of Steve and Steve's presence. So I feel like she's far more closely aligned to Bucky in the show and in the films. Portrayed by Emily Van Camp. First seen in Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Last seen in Falcon Winter Soldier. So yeah.
She's evil now.
She's evil now. She's the power broker. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I mean, it was great to see them kind of come together. She was rightfully pissed off.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. They absolutely left her
when
hanging.
she explained that, I was like, and she explained to where she is now and why I was like, yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah,
like,
it checks out. Yeah.
You expect her to be good all the time?
Yeah, no, exactly. And it's kind of, I mean, not to go down Doctor Strangeland, but it's quite similar to like Wanda. It's like you expected her to stay quote unquote good. Yeah. Look what she's been through. Like, no
like
way.
She helped out Cap.
Yeah.
When, obviously during the Accords, which is obviously breaking the law.
Yeah.
But then when the dust cleared, no one helped her out.
Nobody.
And it was like, you kind of cast me out. Yeah. And now I'm forced to go here to Madripoor and build a reputation for myself.
Which is kind of wild in itself because you just kind of like, oh, everybody was fine. And then you don't really, no. She, like, imagining that journey for her. Yeah. And she said it best herself, was like, well, first I got trying to save your ass, and then I had to get the wings for your ass, like whatever she said. And I was like, yeah, actually.
Yeah. And then Cap, left me for my aunt. Again. Exactly.
Oh, geez. But yeah, like poor Sharon Carter. So I think, of course, as is with Falcon and Winter Soldier, we'll probably see Sharon Carter again at the same time.
Maybe she'll be the main adversary in Sam's Captain America movie.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Who knows? We'll see.
Maybe.
I think she'll definitely play a part.
Yeah.
Which then brings us to, not Sam Wilson just yet, but Steve Rogers, Captain America. I mean, what else can we really say? Portrayed by Chris Evans.
Everyone knows the deal. Everyone knows.
And I wrote in my notes, first scene in Captain America, the First Avenger, last scene in Avengers Endgame, or Free Guy, if you dig. Which I finally looked at. And I loved that.
Oh,
yeah, that was pretty great. If you haven't seen it, it's wonderful. And so in the comics, I mean, he's, like I mentioned at the top of the show, very close, very father and son like, very Batman and Robin. He would do anything for the kid. He looked out for the kid. The kid was his life.
Yeah.
The kid grew up. The kid became his enemy, and now they're just best friends.
Yeah.
It's,
typical.
Yeah.
Typical.
Typical relationship. Yeah. And I think they had a very strong bond throughout the MCU, MCU films, and I loved them soup to nuts. Like, I think they had great chemistry as buddies, and like,
I love their dynamic.
I love their dynamic.
Their chemistry together, Chris Evans and Sebastian Stan.
Oh my gosh, it's so.
It was perfect.
Omnipresent.
It worked.
It worked perfectly. I loved, even when he's defending Steve or Steve, when he's defending him against the bullies and all that, and then even when he when Cap rescues him from the facility, he's like, you're taller or whatever he says.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then when Bucky, when they have that moment where he hasn't yet seen Captain America's power, and he makes it across the bridge, and then he's like, go without me. And he's like, I'm not leaving without you. And it's like, whoa, dude.
Yeah.
Like the dynamic, like you said, it's so unique and uncanny, and I think very specific to those two characters.
Even at the end of Infinity War, when they get dusted, and Bucky's the first person to get dusted, and he's like, and the first thing he says is, Steve?
When that happened during the first screening, I immediately started bawling. Just because it was so, you think about it, right? You're like, okay, these characters have been together for 9 years.
Yeah.
In your mind, sort of on screen. And all it took was a quiet scene and him to just go, Steve? And then I started bawling.
Yeah.
And
you're
then,
like, oh, shoot.
And then Chris Evans doubled down with his reaction. And I was like, oh
he
my
grabs
God.
at
Yeah,
he's like,
and it's the way he grabs it too. You're just like, oh my God. And it's just, that's powerful. Really, really powerful. Very intense. Yeah. And so, but they did give us the nice little payoff at the very, very end. Where he's saying goodbye to his friend for the last time. That
one was very hard because they both knew exactly what they both know, or Bucky knew exactly what Steve was gonna do.
Yeah.
And he's like,
yeah.
All right.
I know, and I don't think it registered with me the very, very first time, maybe the second time.
Really?
Because you read Bucky's face more. And it's not because, I think for me at least, watching him, it was kind of just taking in that he was sad. He was sad his friend was going away. Or he was just like, oh, I know, I'm so tired. But by the second watch, I was like, oh no, you really do see it written on his face. He's like, I know what you're doing. Or they've had the discussion.
They had a discussion. Maybe they didn't have a discussion, but when Bucky came back and the dust settled and everything, and it was just like,
literally.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, damn. That was very unintended, by the way. Like everything was settled down, and then Bucky's catching up with Cap, and they're it's just like, oh, you time traveled into the stone to whatever, and then when they're having that scene, it's just like. And then Bruce is like, I'm gonna jump you, and then I'm gonna count in 5. I'm gonna take you back. He's like, see you in a bit. And then Cap is like,
yep,
you bet. And you're like, no, he's not. No, he's not.
Yeah, I think we said this in the Captain America episode too. You're just like, if you pay more attention to Cap's responses, you're like, oh, he absolutely was like.
Even
he's a bad liar.
Even right before, because after Bucky and Steve embraced, I knew, because he's like don't do anything stupid until I get back, and then
taking all the, how can I be taking all the stupid
taking all the stupid with you, and there's a silent pause, and then someone's, I don't know if it was Bucky or Steve, says, "I'm gonna miss you, pal."
Yeah.
And that's when it's like, oh, he knows he's not coming back.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I absolutely love them. Yeah, I'm kind of sad that we'll never really get to see them again together on screen in that fashion.
We need that.
I know, but that's right.
Don't give us
No,
fans hope.
no.
We don't need it.
Yeah.
Let Steve stay in the 1940s.
So he's not in the moon?
And what?
He's not on the moon? No, he's not.
Maybe he might be. He might be with
moon mission.
He might be with Nick Fury on a spaceship.
Exactly.
For sure, at least.
Gosh. And so that brings us to Sam Wilson, Falcon, Captain America.
Best buddies.
And best. I just put that. I put best buddies and the buddy cop relationship for sure. And similarly, in the comic books to the MCU, they didn't exactly get along at first. It was very much touch and go between those two, and not for any particular reason. It's just that, like Bucky is not exactly a party guy. Like he's not really he's got a I've been using this phrase a lot, but he's got a specific flavor to him in that he's not very extroverted, and he's quite tonally stiff and whatnot. But in the comics, similar paths brought them together at an intersection. Again, very much like the MCU. A lot of their stories are they tend to be street level, very like secret agent-ish and not too super spy, but they do solve things together. They get down to business and they defeat the bad guys, if you will. And it does vary. Street level, one day, next day, they're battling Kobik again, the cosmic cube.
Yeah.
and Hail Hydra Cap.
Yeah.
So they interwove quite a bit. And of course, I think, like I mentioned in a couple of episodes, when Marvel started to really integrate timing comics with MCU, is when Falcon and Winter Soldier got their own titles.
Got their own comic run. Nice.
Yeah, so they even got their own comic runs first independently, like when Sam first becomes Captain America.
Yeah.
And then Bucky as well, and then they come together in Falcon and Winter Soldier, then again in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Nice.
Yeah, so they just kind of change up the title a bit, and it's a new comic. But yeah, those I think were really good. They're very reminiscent of the things that they go through in the series.
Yeah.
And of course, Sam Wilson, Falcon, Captain America, portrayed by Anthony Mackie. And Falcon. The acronyms I have throughout this note are like each one is like CATWS, CAWCW,
Yeah.
TFATWS.
Yes.
So, first scene in Captain America: Winter Soldier, last scene in Falcon and Winter Soldier. Sam's dope. I love Sam.
I think Anthony Mackie plays him great.
Yeah.
And like he's played him so consistently great since Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Oh, I forget they both came in at the same time.
Yeah,
wow.
exactly.
Wow.
And so when you think about it that way and kind of how they very subtly started to string together these two characters, because like even in Civil War, like they just get paired up.
Yeah.
Right? They get
just
paired
for some reason.
Yeah, which is very funny because in Winter Soldier, like he literally pulls Sam out of the sky and it's like nearly kills him, right?
Yeah.
Then a film later, now they're running through the airport.
What the hell is that? Everyone's got a gimmick now.
Exactly. Getting their ass served to them by a child.
Yes.
It's fantastic. You couldn't have done that earlier.
And then they both hate Tom Holland.
And they both hate Tom Holland.
It's so
it's amazing.
it just works.
I love it. Oh my gosh, it's so good. And they like absolutely love each other. But yeah, the journey of course is best seen in Falcon and Winter Soldier as a series because obviously 8 hours worth of
I like
storytelling.
how in the show they both go through, like we both get to go deeper about them individually, like what they're feeling, what they're going through, but then like as a whole throughout the show it's them growing together, like them finding themselves separately, but then it's still running in parallel with them as a friendship.
Yeah.
And they both grow from the first episode to the last.
Yeah, exactly. And so I feel like that's very similar to the comics. And, of course, like, again, these are characters that are just they have so much lore behind them. And Falcon is also an aged character. He's been around for a very long time. Not as long as Bucky, but he's been around for a very long time and consistently. Whereas, Winter Soldier is more, again, the last 20 years or so, less than 20 years. But yeah, it's, I can't imagine what they're going to do with Captain America 4 and how they're going to.
Yeah. I honestly have no idea.
No idea.
I mean, there was kind of like a setup for it, I guess, at the end of the show. You know, obviously, like, with Sharon being a power broker and everything, and Zemo is in Wakanda now. So I don't know, like, do you continue like those stories and then maybe bring something in at the end? It's like, like now it's like, I think we were talking about this in the Spider-Man episode too, about characters doing like obviously I know this is it would be a different trilogy because it's Sam now instead of Steve, but it's like it's gonna be a fourth Captain America.
Do you think they'll do a trilogy?
I don't know, and that's the thing. Well, that's why I think it's weird with this one, and like I know it's not hypocritical of me, like, oh well, you think Spider-Man's getting a third. How come you can't? Because it's gonna be totally just Sam's now. It's not even like it's the same Tom Holland. It's like a different Captain America, different actor,
right?
And I don't know, because it's like the way that the Marvel movies are slated now, it's like they've already gotten like a lot of these big trilogies out the way already. So it's just like, do people want, I think Marvel's at a point of like, do we want to keep continuing like these stories, keep making these sequels, which is obviously people want it. But then it's like, as a creative standpoint, it's like, we also want to introduce these new like original characters that we haven't seen on screen yet. Like we've seen with the Moon Knight, or we've seen with She-Hulk, that we haven't seen yet, and Miss Marvel. So it's like, do we stick to your guns, or do we try to go out of the box here? I think they're in a very and then they have to like plan it, schedule it, release it in a certain amount of years where it still gauges interest for people. And it's tough. Like I mean, we probably don't know, but there's probably like multiple Marvel productions going on at the same time, and a lot of other ones in post-production at the same time. So it's like, it is a 24/7, 365 machine running all the time. So I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know.
It's like, oh man. And like I said, they're all coming up on that 10-year, and it's like,
and people are gonna keep asking this question too. Will this genre, at least Marvel Studios, will it ever burn out? Because now that they brought in these Disney Plus shows, so that we have more content a little bit more consistently, rather than getting only 2 to 3 MCU movies a year. Now it's like 2 to 3 movies a year. But also there's 4 shows. There's about 4 shows.
It's a year-long thing. No.
Like every other month, there's a Marvel thing coming out. Maybe even more than that. So it's like, the fact that this has been this consistent though this long is a tribute to Feige
feat.
and what Marvel Studios is doing.
They'll say.
So it's just like, it's a very fine line. So I don't know.
So we'll see what happens to the next iteration
because I do still want to see Bucky's story.
Exactly.
I really do.
No, same.
But a lot of logistics come like, okay, like what kind of story can we tell? Who's up for it? Is Sebastian still up for it? Like what? And like, if he is up for it, like, does he want to bookend his tenure as Bucky Barnes? And like, how does he want to end it? And it's like, now you got to figure that out. You got to find the right story for it.
All I know is that I don't know that I'm prepared for a MCU where Bucky Barnes dies. You know what I mean? Like, I don't, and I think about this specifically because they didn't necessarily kill Steve Rogers, right?
No,
like,
he's just gone.
He's just gone.
His story's gone. Yeah, his story's done. Yeah.
Like, would they take him out in a brutal way? Bucky, that is, would they take him out in a brutal way, or is he gonna kind of just phase out like many of the other alumni have? You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
So what is his end game? No pun intended. Like, what would his end game be? Because it's like, he can keep going forever.
I'm always
honestly.
thinking like, what? Like when is it gonna be the time when the phase 1 heroes are done?
Yeah.
2 of them already done. 3 of them already done.
3, yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
you know, like obviously Hulk is doing like his thing, and
Do you think he sunsets with this?
Huh?
Do you think Hulk sunsets with She-Hulk? Do you think he then passes on the torch like Clint did with Kate?
I mean, this is a whole nother thing too, but we can go discuss it further into like a future episode. But like I brought up the Universal thing.
Yeah.
So because Hulk's story has to be told in increments,
Yeah.
it can't be told in full on stories.
Yeah.
When his tenure ends, at least for me, is like I don't, if whenever it does end, I don't know. Either like you said, it will just phase out, or there will be like an announcement from Mark saying like, "This is my final time playing, like Bruce Banner."
That's so crazy.
You know, but with Jeremy Renner with Hawkeye, I mean, obviously, end of Hawkeye, like it didn't really bookend it.
Yeah.
You know, but we obviously know Natasha's dead.
Yeah.
Tony's dead.
Yeah.
We know like Cap just is. We knew that was just bookended.
Yeah.
Like
he's
the way,
gone. As
like the
Bucky
way
said.
that Endgame ended, you're like, okay, we're never gonna see him.
Yeah.
At least for another 10 years. I don't care.
Yeah.
You know, but then you have these other characters like Sam, and then you have Bucky, and it's like, and these are characters that are just so beloved.
Yep.
By the fans, like Loki. Everybody loves Loki. So you always just want to see him doing stuff.
Yeah.
And like he's going to, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a very deep discussion that we'll never know the answers for until they
it
get
happens.
announced.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So there is one left as far as affiliations go, or family in some cases. Alpine the cat.
Oh gosh.
So Bucky has
That's
a
funny.
pet cat that is pure white, driven snow in the comic books, created by Kyle Higgins and Rod Reyes. I know Kyle Higgins. He's a nice guy. I didn't know he invented Alpine, so I have something to talk about next time I see him. Like, so Alpine, huh? But yeah, so Alpine, she more or less appears in the books magically one day. So it's an issue that Rod Reyes actually drew as well. But Bucky is basically getting a tune-up from Tony, and the cat is just sitting there, and you're just like, where did this cat come from? And you think, oh, is it Tony's? No, it's his. It's Bucky's.
Oh.
And so the cat goes through I don't know how many issues without a name, without even a regard of other than the cat.
Yeah.
And then eventually she's given a name, Alpine. And fun fact, her direct or indirect counterpart is Natasha's own pet. Natasha has a black cat.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. It's I don't know if it's a pet. Like in the run that Phil Noto drew, which I love so much, the cat was a stray that would just kind of come around, and Natasha would be like, go away, this isn't your home, trying to push it away, and it just kept coming back.
Come back, yeah.
And so she named him Leo, Liho. And I think we mentioned him in the Black Widow episode.
Yes.
Yeah. And then more recently known as Logan, and it's this big thing I don't even want to get into. but I respectfully call Nat's cat Leo. But yeah, so we don't have an MCU counterpart to this, and I wrote in my notes in all caps, no MCU counterpart. Marvel change this immediately.
We need a cat
Bucky
counterpart.
with a cat. Show me Bucky with a cat now. I want the cat dad vibes.
Let's do it.
Yeah, like he's Alpine's she's in the issues, and he'll I think it's in the Falcon and Winter Soldier #1. He's meditating, and she's just like around. She's like around, and she's just like curling up against him, and he's like, yay, and yeah. They just had another release too. They did Marvel Unlimited. What was it? I forgot what they call it. Infinity comic.
Okay.
So it's just it's one comic that you just scroll through vertically. It's so cool. It's like a new format that they have. It's very short, but they have one called Marvel Cats or something. And it has Leo, it has Alpine, and it also has like Felicia Hardy's cats, and it has Goose, Chewie. Yeah.
Oh.
So she's in there too. Yeah, it's really cute. But anyway, we can also teams. So I didn't really want to get into teams too much. He's not really in teams in the MCU, so I didn't want to dive into it.
Mm-hmm.
But like, in the books, like many Avengers Barnes, Bucky's been in quite a few teams.
Yeah.
But the two most notable, I think, from this standpoint are Strike Force and the Thunderbolts. Thunderbolts are obviously the ones that we've been hearing a lot about in recent times, and I think if there's going to be any sort of team that pops up anywhere, it's going to be Thunderbolts.
I wonder if they do it now, since
that's kind of what makes most sense. And to answer our previous question, maybe that's what's in Captain America 4. Yeah, which I suppose would come out end of 23 or 24 for sure.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But yeah, in the MCU, no teams, just kind of an Avenger and kind of a
Not a pre-Venger, not the Revengers. Avenger.
Avenger.
I just watched Endgame a couple of days ago.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. And he's also a man of Wakanda. So there's that. Which brings us to love interests. We're actually not going to spend too much time in the love interest world because there's not much to say. I mentioned previously, that many aspects of the MCU version of Bucky were lifted from the Ultimates universe. And so in the Ultimates universe, he does have a love interest that isn't Natasha Romanoff. And in fact, I wrote down, he pulled a Shane from The Walking Dead. So Cap had a fiancée before his untimely death named Gail Richards. Bucky then marries that woman.
Jeez.
Yeah. And like I mentioned before, also, Bucky was an adult in the Ultimates universe, but he also served as an army press photographer in that universe. So they changed that and did not adapt that to the Sebastian Stan version, but that's okay. I think they did pretty well otherwise. And then, like I mentioned at the very, very top of the show, believe it or not, there is this 1944 Captain America serial series. And so serial is more or less like it's either a radio show or a television show of some sort. And so this was in the, in the 40s where everything was black and white. Moving pictures were like, whoa, television. And so Gail Richards actually exists in that series. And she was portrayed by a woman named Lorna Gray. And Gail in the series was a secretary for Grant Gardner. So, because of that series, they then created Gail Richards in the comic books based off of, as a homage to that version. So she came first, then the comic, and then there it is. Which then brings us to Natasha Romanoff.
Nice. I know you've always wanted this. You always wanted this to be hinted at in the movies,
dude,
and you never got it.
I know, and we got a listener comment from Vibranium Queen, who says, "Are either of you bummed they didn't explore Bucky Nat in the MCU?" The answer is yes.
That's been talking about this like the last 5 years for sure.
That's like the only Let me tell you. Like, honestly, before Falcon and Winter Soldier, I wasn't too heavily invested in Bucky Barnes. I wasn't. I appreciate the character a lot.
Yes.
I love the character in the MCU. I love the character in the comic books. But
yes.
I was never as invested as I was with the Bucky and Nat-isms. Because Geoffrey's just laughing at me off mic.
Because I know you've mentioned this like to me so many times over the years. You're like, I just want them to touch on Bucky and Nat. Like, it doesn't even have to be like a full-on storyline. Like, they just acknowledge it.
Just
maybe
acknowledge it.
Maybe in the past. Like,
yeah, dude. Like, I was taking every little hint as like, you should. I'm not even one of those people, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not one of those people that's like a shipper.
Yeah.
I have to.
And
with them, I was just like, I need this.
And the farthest it got was actually the moment we brought up earlier was bye bye bikini line.
Bye bikini.
And that was it.
That was it.
That was their only interaction.
But you gotta. It's so funny because like, I wish that like, oh my God, if you could hear my brain, like inside my brain when I'm watching these films for the first time. So imagine me sitting when I was watching Winter Soldier, right? And like she mentions him, I like perked up in my seat and I was like, are they going to show a flashback? And they don't. And then I'm like, okay. And then they don't do anything. The entire film, they don't do anything. And I was like, all right, it's all right. And then Civil War comes around. And then she goes, the least you could do is remember me. And I was like, are you going to talk about the Red Room? Like, what's happening? Are they going to do it? And then they don't do it. She just meant from the bikini time. And I was like, oh.
Or just in general. Yeah.
In general. And then they tripled me with the opening of Black Widow. And the time, and then they hit me with that time, the 1995. And I was like, oh, he was killing the Starks in 1991. Oh, yeah, that didn't happen because she was a baby. So that immediately eradicated everything that I had. I was like, oh. And it actually affected how I perceived the film. Like, unabashedly. It really did. So that was 5 minutes in. I was so like, wow, this is, I love this. Oh, Nirvana? Oh, dang. And then once they hit me with that year,
your brain started going
my
into
brain
overdrive.
Was just like,
yeah.
Oh, I checked out. I almost checked out. Yelena Belova saved it for me. She saved it
I think
for
she
me.
saved everybody.
And then I saw, because I went to the premiere, right?
Yeah.
Imagine being in the premiere and you're disappointed 10 minutes in because you didn't get Bucky nap. Bucky nap, you know what I mean? I was like,
ladies and gentlemen, that is 90% of Twitterverse right there in a nutshell.
That's true. That is true. That is very true. So, to answer your question, Vibranium Queen. Yes. I was very bummed that they didn't do it. Oh my God. Oh, Geoffrey's so
you guys
amused.
have no idea like why it's so like funny to me
It's
because
so
Dai's been
ridiculous.
wanting this.
That's all I wanted. Like nothing else, right? Like I've not wanted anything else in
Never.
the MCU.
She's never complained about anything. She's
never.
Ever.
This
She's
is the
always
one
brought up
thing.
Nat and Buck.
Yeah.
And it's like it's like disappointment every time.
Every time.
And then she died.
And then she died. I don't know if I just screamed into the mic, but then she died. Like, bro, not even like a flashback. Like nothing.
She only said bye to one
nothing.
person, and it was Hawkeye. That was it. So,
Oh, bruv. I was so like, oh, jeez. I was pained. It was pain. Jesus. Oh, hey, Buck. Oh, we woke up Bucky.
Oh.
Bucky, come here. Come
the
here.
man of the hour
Come here, buddy.
has.
Come here. You can give us some ASMR? Come here.
Ooh.
Come here.
Oh yeah. We like that.
that? Good boy.
James Buchanan Barnes, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, special guest. Thanks. Unsung third mic of the show. Thank you, sir. Very well done. So yeah, I'm a little salty about that.
Rightfully so. I get it.
Yeah, and so just to recap for the comic book version of Natasha Romanoff in Bucky Barnes' life, they have a very subtle, not so subtle love triangle going on with between the two of them and Clint Barton, a.k.a. Hawkeye.
Yeah.
Early on, Clint just did not like Bucky. Did not. So like early on he wasn't having it. Like any opportunity Clint had to kind of undermine Bucky, especially if Nat was around, he would take it.
He'd do it.
Yeah. He's like, are you sure we can trust that guy? He was the Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
He killed 492 men. Like he would always bring something up.
Yeah.
And they didn't until I would say fairly recently actually become sort of a duo that hates to love each other, hates to like each other. Like they're kind of like not like Sam and Bucky. Like Sam and Bucky are definitely like besto friendzo.
Oh,
but
100%.
yeah, Clinton.
I believe that.
Clinton and Buck kind of tolerate each other. And then like a fresh reminder that Bucky used to be a KGB instructor in the Red Room. So he trained not only Nat, but many of the Black Widows back in the day. And, you know, again, this was a time during the Cold War and relationships, especially romantic ones, were completely forbidden among assassins and the spies. And so, unfortunately, although Bucky and Nat kind of developed a romantic relationship, they were discovered, and then Nat was arranged to be married to Alexei Shostakov, as we remember him.
Oh, yeah.
And then they threw Bucky into cryo, and that was the end of their story, more or less, until much later when once again Bucky became Captain America. And yeah, with Nat's in the book, with Nat's recent like rebirth, if you will, and that whole thing where she had a husband named James who was not Bucky and had the son that was born of like DNA and in a lab and such. Stevie, they really haven't concentrated on Bucky, Nat, Winter Widow nearly as much as they used to, and rightfully so, because, you know, at least it belongs to Nat now. Like, it's Nat's story by herself. So yeah, unfortunately we did not get any of that in the MCU. And you know, I would have loved to seen some aspects of it, but not in this lifetime.
You live and you learn.
Yeah.
You know?
Not even in What If. Like, I didn't even get it there.
Oh, yeah, you didn't.
They could have thrown me a bone. They could have threw me a bone. They could have. They didn't.
They're like, probably in that room, they're probably like, guys, like, should we do like, I don't know, like a Nat and Bucky, like, you know, because it's very important in the comic books.
Yeah.
And they're probably like,
Yeah.
you know, that's Dai's favorite storyline.
How dare
And they're
you.
like, you're right. Let's not do it.
It's cruel.
Let's leave
Okay.
her. Let's leave her
Okay.
hanging on a thread.
Follow up. And this is something I've only stumbled upon very recently. What are your thoughts on the potential of them finally fulfilling Winter Widow, but with Bucky and Yelena?
Oh, I mean, technically, it's a widow. So
Could you imagine that?
I could definitely imagine that. Since we saw Yelena in the Falcon and Winter Soldier, you know, so it's like,
Wait, did we?
wasn't that the end of Winter Soldier? Falcon and the Winter Soldier show?
No. Oh, no.
When
No. Wait,
when Valentina comes on in the post-credit scene?
that's Black Widow.
Oh my God. It looks like it's set in the same universe. It is,
yeah.
but it looks like it was like in the same, like shot in the same way.
No. Yeah,
Oh,
no,
wow.
that was Black Widow. Yeah.
See, we
It was
got each
Black
other
Widow.
once in this
We got each
episode,
other.
yeah.
Yeah, we got zinged. Yeah.
But yes,
yeah.
I could see that. I could see that. I could see them intersecting at some point.
Yeah.
I don't know how or when. I mean, shoot, maybe.
I
damn.
kind of want to see her.
What if
beat
they
the
all
crap
get
out of him.
together in the Captain America 4 movie? Wow.
I would love that though.
Like
right?
what if Hawkeye comes there, meets up them, Yelena,
Oh
and
my
then
gosh.
Bucky, and then Cap, and then you're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
you know, like it's another little mini thing,
Yeah.
But because it's so established, you're like, oh yeah, it's fine,
Yeah.
we get it.
Yeah. Oh, we'll see. But you know, aside Natasha. Aside
Rip.
Nat. Rip. Yeah, Buck had a couple of smaller relationships here. Connie, who we saw in Captain America: The First Avenger, portrayed by the lovely Jenna Louise Coleman, who some people know from Doctor Who. She was a companion. She was certainly my favorite. I don't know too much about Doctor Who, and I've said this a few times, but I did watch her entire season, and I do love her a lot. So I was glad to see her in that film. And yeah, just for a reminder's sake, she was the brunette that's on the double date with Steve and Bonnie. So it was Connie and Bonnie.
Nice, nice.
And then Buck ended up with both of them. Who knows what they were
Wow.
up to? I know.
Wow.
Yeah, okay, Bucky. And then that brings us to Leah, who is portrayed by Miki Ishikawa in Falcon and Winter
That's
Soldier. Yeah, the awkward date girl. So she's a waitress at the Izzy Sushi bar and restaurant. And yeah, it's one very awkward date. And but that's how we learn a lot about the modern Bucky, the 2023 Bucky,
and all the guilt
that he's harboring, and the things that still trigger him, even though he's been more or less, he's benefited from the therapy that A.O. provided him.
Yeah.
Who, of course, I forgot to write down in the friends, but the people of Wakanda are obviously very important.
I was gonna say, I love how important Wakanda is.
Yeah.
In Bucky's growth as a character in the MCU.
Yeah.
Because, he's isolated a lot in like, especially after he went under cryo and everything, and they made him his new arm and everything. So he was really kind of like taken in by the Wakandans. And so I think it's right, especially in the show, that the Wakandans made an appearance and, kind of helped them out,
Yeah. So here's a question for you, kind of to like backtrack us a bit, but at the end of Civil War is when we see Bucky go back under, right?
Yes.
And then he is rendered back at the end of Black Panther.
Yes.
So what do you think the timeline is there? What do you think ultimately is like
how long?
How long, and also for what reason? Because it wasn't like they were in battle or anything. They just he was thawed out.
Oh, that's right.
And then they give him the arm.
Yeah, I wonder how long he was under cryo.
Right?
Like, was it like
because Civil War is like 2015, 2016. Black Panther was 2016 as well, was it not?
Black Panther was
2017.
February 2017.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, because Doctor Strange came out 2017 as well.
Yes, November.
Okay, so then February 2017.
The face you just
Yes. I want to make sure my timeline
legendary.
is right. I just want to make sure my timeline is right.
That was fantastic. Oh, I wish everybody could have seen that. It's like you turned to yourself in an astral form, and you're like, and your astral form was like, "Yeah, you got this."
Yeah, okay.
And you're like, "Cool."
There 2017, and then end of the post credits was him getting woken up by the Wakandan children.
Do we think that's like real time? Do we think it was a year?
I think at that time it was probably like real time.
Yeah.
Like he was in cryo for a bit.
Yeah.
And then, once like the Wakandans thought he was ready, they're like, okay, let's bring him out and let's kind of like bring him back into the world.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And then it's in Infinity War.
Right.
Which came out in 2018. So a whole year later, 2 years. It's a whole 2 year span from like the end of Civil War to that.
Right.
So it seems like it's pretty real time. I mean, what he was gonna be doing in Wakanda? Shoot, I don't know, like herding cattle, just throwing hay
the
like he
life.
was. Yeah.
It's
the most
true.
advanced country in the world.
In the world,
so.
yeah. And it was peace. Like it was peaceful for him because I imagine like you go from those really visceral scenes of him undergoing torture, and then you have this flip side of here he is without any arm and his truest self that he's been since 1945.
And then going back to the flashback in the show, like I wonder how hard it was for him to like forget like what Hydra has put into him.
Yeah.
Like that scene with him and AO.
Yeah.
And like him finally like hearing the trigger words and not turning.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's a huge moment.
Yeah.
So that was
gigantic.
That was insane. That's great. So now it's like it's a clean slated winter, quote unquote, winter soldier, because he's not the winter soldier anymore.
The
but
white wolf.
He's the white wolf.
White wolf.
So
yeah.
So to see now where his growth, because like it was his growth from Winter Soldier to end of Civil War, and then from Black Panther to end of Endgame, and then there's a different growth path from the show throughout the whole show, and now he's like in this new path where his mind is not altered, it is not broken. Now he's like, and there's and like his mind is not altered, but he's also living in a world without Steve Rogers,
right?
And that's all he knew,
right?
Like, the show was about Sam and that, but ultimately it was all Bucky knew was Steve Rogers.
Well, and that perfectly aligns with one of my favorite lines of dialogue that he has in Falcon and Winter Soldier, and it's when he and Sam are kind of having that impromptu like SHIELD training scene in Louisiana, and he says like straight up to him, he's like, when you gave away that shield, when you resigned the shield,
I felt like
it felt like you were giving away whatever family I had left.
Yes.
And then I had nothing.
That was
and I was
that
like,
was a powerful line too.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which exactly correlates to Steve and again how important he was. And he was the only family, they were the only family that both of them had left.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Because,
so that progression and I that's why I do love the show. Like I feel like the show gets so much more flack for its quote unquote woke moments and undertones than it should, because I just feel like people are also missing the character growth.
But
like
it plays into each character's growth, especially
exactly.
like certain quote unquote woke takes played into Sam's storyline with
and
him being like,
of the matter.
he's like, oh, that's Black that's Black Falcon.
Yeah, it's like
It's just Falcon, dude.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's like it doesn't matter if I was black or white, brown, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then with Bucky's kind of arc, it's like people forget that he's over almost 100 years old.
Yeah.
So he's living in a world
106.
106, there it is. He's living in a world where now he doesn't have Steve, but also now try to live in a world where I'm an Avenger technically.
Yeah.
But I have nobody, but all I've known is pain because of these trigger words and then Wakanda's come into play. So we see that growth too, and they both meet at its peak perfectly at the end. So it's like now they're both kind of like they're in a different mindset, and their character is just incredibly different from where it was from the beginning of from the end of Endgame.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, he was he was almost like shredded paper. And he was frayed at the edges, and then now you're kind of seeing him being put together in a new way. He's formulating a full piece of paper again, and now he's getting to write his own story.
Yes.
So
it's like, where does he go from here now?
Yeah, exactly. And almost, I'm almost inclined to say that I was kind of satisfied with that. If that was the last time I was going to see Bucky Barnes, I'd be okay with it. But that's certainly not the last time I want to see him. I want to see him for many more years.
Yeah.
But if that was the last time that they gave me a solid, this is a full-fledged Bucky Barnes. See, he keeps looking at me like, my name? If that's the last time we see the Winter Soldier, then I think I would be mostly okay with it. But not entirely. I still think there's a little room to
for
further
sure. It's
explore.
kind of like the ending of like No Way Home. Like we see Peter Parker like grow into this new version of Peter Parker and Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And it's like there's story left.
Yeah, exactly.
So now with this Bucky Barnes that has formulated at the end of Falcon and Winter Soldier, it's like okay, it's kind of like a nice like happy ending for him because he finally got rid of like all those demons, those Hydra demons inside of him. And now he's kind of like he's his own person now. Like he's learned to move on and live a life without Steve, but now he has Sam with him.
Right.
So it's like cool. Like now there's more story to be told, but it's still technically a bookend to his character, but just to one part of his character.
Right. Exactly. So are you ready to talk aesthetics?
Yeah.
Let's go. All right, so we received a listener comment from VampireKiss12 on Instagram, who asks, the original Bucky costume, was it really a leotard and tights? When did the second incarnation of Bucky happen? So, I mean, this is like, needless to say, the original costume was very, again, reminiscent of like the Robin-esque look, where it was kind of like almost even Peter Pan. Like it was some sort of top with like the outside underoos with the tights.
Sure, yeah.
But Bucky's was more wartimey looking, where it had the sort of stylizations of the collar were very military-like, and the buttons and the breast coat. Very reminiscent of the military era, which we saw adapted in First Avenger in his second suit, the suit that he falls in when he's in the train. You see him with that collar. In What If as well. Yeah. So I feel like that was like the callback and the homage to the comic book versions that we've seen, less the tights, thank God. And it, of course, in the MCU, stripped down of the color. So it was just a neutral gray, green, blue look.
Yeah.
That was more of a future or a foreshadowing kind of homage that you see later on. And of course, the second incarnation, or at least the more notable costume change, is when he becomes the Winter Soldier, which that costume is very like identical to the comic book counterpart, which you just saw in these pages.
Yes.
It is very, like tactical. The arm is exposed. Lots of pockets, lots of Velcro, lots of straps. Just a gothic dream. Shout out to costume designers Judiana Makovsky and Michael Crow, who worked on the first two Captain America films as well as Falcon and Winter Soldier, respectively. And of course, beyond that, there's the smaller things. There's the obvious haircuts, and we talk about this many times, where the characters have glow ups and they change throughout their time in on film, and it's very similar to that in the comic books. They kind of get the like you saw Bucky's hair go from the short to the long, and stuff like that, as well as his domino mask that he wears in the books. They kind of treated that a little different when it came to the film, because the Winter Soldier mask, and he had the blacked out eyes.
Yes.
Which again, another homage, and also very true to that of like army and tactical like gear and look. Like when you go into the war or battle, you've got the war paint, if you will.
Yeah.
But of course, beyond those attributes, there's the prosthetic arm. Which they do regard as a prosthetic arm in the books and MCU, not so much a bionic or mechanical arm, but a prosthetic, because it is a prosthetic.
Yep.
In the comics, it was courtesy of Hydra as well. In the comics, though, it's so funny because, and not even, it is. It's actually quite funny. It's destroyed time and again in the books. Like,
really?
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. Yeah.
Because it's a comic, right? And it's kind of like, and also because it's not necessarily Wakandan vibranium. Like, it's not a thing, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like in Civil War how like Iron Man blows it off. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
So you see a lot of that in
Yeah.
the
But
comics.
it's easier to keep ripping something off in the comics than it is in the movies.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's
like for sure. It's always give him a new. He'll get a new iteration of it. Whatever.
Yeah,
but
exactly. Like there's a book. I think it was a Black Widow book with. He's actually teamed up with Clint, and it's basically them just hating each other the entire issue. And there's a part where the arm gets blown off, or he does something where it's destroyed in some manner, and it flops onto the ground, and he just straps it onto his back, and Clint is like, that is really disturbing. Buck's like,
what do you want me to do?
Yeah, it's pretty funny. It's so good. And so it's not nearly as dramatic as it is in the movies, but it serves some good purpose in the books. And of course in the MCU, the original arm is very iconic because it had the red Russian star on it, crafted by Hydra and their wonderful diabolical team of scientists.
Oh yeah.
And so apparently that, I don't know if they mentioned this, I don't know if you remember this, but it was made of titanium in the first
very
Falcon,
high quality
Falcon.
metal. I forget. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was apparently titanium in Winter Soldier, which then, of course, like we discussed, it gets upgraded to Wakandan vibranium.
And that was it, right? It just went from that to.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's it.
Yeah. That's it.
Because he just went the time without it, and then next thing you know, T'Challa's
They made
giving him the gift.
Yeah. Like wow.
Yeah.
What an upgrade, man.
Yeah,
it looks good too.
It looks so good.
Oof.
But I do, and this kind of fits in the small smidgen of space where I do think he's worth more exploration, because like I mentioned before, like he has hidden blade in it. Like, does this version of it, does he have a hidden blade that he
is there
doesn't
like
know
some
about?
hidden like
because like AO disabling him probably one of the key.
That was so funny.
That was incredible. Oh my gosh, I gasped for sure.
Yeah,
like,
I was like,
oh!
and then even Sam was like, "Did you know they can do that?"
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
Bucky's like, "No."
Exactly. I just the way that it
like,
collapses and his reaction to it is just like
is it like the Stark
Incredible.
Spider-Man suit where it's like you unlock the after the beginner,
kill mode.
like
Yeah.
shoot, like what else can I do?
What
with
else
this?
can he do, right?
Yeah.
Because it is made by the scientists in Wakanda, and probably Shuri and a number of other people, and so sky's the limit with that bad boy.
Exactly,
I think,
like
he
vibranium,
has no idea.
like they said, is the most versatile metal on
Right.
all
Exactly.
wear. Yeah, so it's like,
Yeah,
definitely.
and certainly, like, speaking of the aesthetic, one of my favorite things about this character, and you see it when he's fighting Steve, both on the ground and also in the helicarrier, when all of the plates like compress and they buckle. And
Yes.
you hear the
Yeah.
like, that's one of I'm such an auditory person. Love
Oh no,
that
yeah, like the
sound.
sounds of his
Oh my
arm, and like
gosh.
you like when you hear it
Yeah.
make impact and stuff,
I
you're
love
like,
it.
ooh,
Yeah, it's like,
yeah.
and I don't know that we get that with the vibranium arm so much, right?
Probably not as like
Yeah, I don't
intricate
think it's,
as that, because I don't think it.
It
Like,
doesn't have plates that
I don't think it
move.
flaps like that. I think
Yeah.
it's like one continuous kind
Right.
of piece of thing that's like reactive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it is vibranium and
It's probably malleable and all that good stuff.
But hopefully it gets explored at some point.
I
but
would love to see something else, like, because even when he was just putting it back on, like seeing the circuitry and all of the hinges
you
that
just
are
hear
in
it
it
kind of like
locks in.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's so cool. So I wanted to touch on the color theory. Speaking of aesthetics and just touch a bit on the looks that have been incorporated into Bucky's attire.
Mm-hmm.
So, the color theory for this character, it's still true for both comic and MCU, even if MCU Bucky doesn't have so much coloration, especially in his 40s form. But Bucky, so as Bucky Barnes, the sidekick and civilian, he's got a lot of blues and a lot of reds. Those are, I feel, his most primary colors, especially in the early books. So apparently blue represents depth, wisdom, and confidence.
Okay.
Which is, I think, it nails it perfectly because, again, he was so enthusiastic and so like, I'm Bucky Barnes.
Yeah.
And then red represents bold, passionate, and determined. So I was like,
also true.
They picked perfect colors
Yeah.
for that. And then you can see my Bucky bear over there next to the
Oh
green.
yeah.
Yeah, there he goes. Red and blue. And then, of course, as Winter Soldier, black, a lot of black is happening, stands for mystery, possible menace, and eternal.
Yeah, definitely a
Nailed it.
mystery, definitely a menace.
And then eternal, I feel, is like the equivalent of that is that he's laced with infinity formula or, serum, super soldier serum.
Or he's always like
Yeah.
under cryo also, so
Yeah.
he's like
Yeah.
living forever.
Endless, right? And then the gray, which is ambiguous, mechanical, and cold.
Oof.
Wow, right? Like they might as well have been his trigger
know.
words.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it nailed it. So yeah, way to go, color theory. Everything makes sense. So in our final portion of all of these things about Bucky Barnes, I saved his time as Captain America for near last because I didn't want to get too deep into it, but I also feel it's very important to this character, at least when it comes to the comic book version, because we don't see him become Captain America in the MCU, and I don't think we ever will because of Sam. There's just no way. There's no way.
Yeah, and that's also a really hot take also among people. Probably,
Oh,
We're probably
really?
like why does Sam get the shield, or how come? Because like obviously it's a storyline, so
Yeah.
how come, well it's a storyline for both of them, but why not?
For sure.
But why not Bucky? And like there's
Oh.
one solid reason why.
Yeah.
It's because of his past.
And he doesn't want it.
He doesn't want it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's certainly something that is very parallel, at least for the most part, when it comes to the comic book canon of Bucky Barnes as Captain America. And so this all takes place after Civil War, because if you recall in the books, like Steve Rogers got assassinated, right?
Yes.
And then so Tony was at the helm. It was his duty to then appoint the next Captain America successor. So he had the shield. He's about to do it. Bucky goes in. He actually has to fight Nat, but he manages to overtake her, and then he steals the shield so that no ceremony can commence, nothing can happen, no one can be Captain America because he has it. And so he goes on the run. He's like, bye.
Whoa.
Which is which tonally reminds me of how determined Bucky was in Falcon and Winter Soldier. Like, we got to get the shield back. We got to steal the shield. We got to get the shield. Why'd you give the shield away?
Like, yeah, like he doesn't
He's
deserve
obsessed
it.
with
Like
the
it's like,
shield,
it's like
yeah.
it's not his, Sam.
Exactly. So it that for me it ran parallel. I was like, I get it. So he puts himself by doing this. He puts himself in Red Skull's crosshairs, who is again always the Captain America. It's
He's always
Batman and Joker.
Yeah,
it's really it's very much that relationship. So Tony then decides, you know what? You be Captain America.
Oof.
And he makes Bucky Captain America. And this again, it's during Civil War, so it's the whole the Accords and all that stuff, right? So Bucky goes, I'll do it, but I get to you don't put me in those, I don't have to sign that. So it kind of pulls him away. I forgot what I had written down initially.
Oh wow.
But yeah. So he's basically labeled autonomous. So he can do whatever he wants away from that Accord, away from that Registration Act,
Yeah.
as long as he's Captain America. So
Wow.
it negates him from that law, if you will.
Nice.
Yeah. So he made it out for himself. And so yeah, like personality wise, he's much more abrasive than Steve. I mentioned this before that while Steve is more of a very natural born leader, Bucky, because he is the Winter Soldier version of himself, he's much more cold, and he's just like, get your ass in line. Come on, let's go, Avengers, rather than Avengers Assemble.
Yeah.
He's much more abrasive and straightforward when it comes to even his fighting style. Like, just imagine Winter Soldier that we're familiar with in MCU, but in a Captain America outfit, and it's different. It's a different vibe altogether.
For sure.
And I don't know if you noticed in that comparative picture with Steve and Bucky both as Cap, but an identifying factor of his outfit not only is the ears covered, which is why I'm still amused that Chris Evans got that and did he said, did a whole movie in this. Yeah. So that's really a Bucky Cap thing, but also it's noted that in the comics, whereas Cap has the chainmail at times and the other sort of patriotic army gear, like of his for his suits.
Yeah.
Bucky's was laced with adamantium.
Whoa.
That's why there's like, if you saw in that picture, there's like a sheen to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So not only does he have the arm, but his freaking Captain America suit is laced with the same metal property that Wolverine's claws are. So it's indestructible.
Crazy.
Yeah. So it makes him like a human bullet in many ways, right? So he's like,
Jesus.
yeah, which does make him a very cool Captain America. In that,
Yeah. Different.
It's very different. But yeah, so he, while dodging the Superhuman Registration Act, he kind of just operates as Captain America until, like I mentioned earlier, Zemo was like, oh, I know how to destroy his life. And then releases the records of him as Winter Soldier, and then he's stripped of the power, essentially. He goes on the run. I think he was found innocent here in the States, but then Russia was like, well, you did your own damage over here as well. So they were going to put him away. He gets busted out by Sharon and Nat.
Nice.
Then he returns, and he's just like, I'm the Winter Soldier again.
It's me.
It's me.
I'm back.
It's me, Bucky Barnes. So yeah, when all is said and done, he's essentially, like we said, like not only did he not want it in the MCU, but there's something to the character and what he has been through that negates him from being, like not fit to be in that role. But he's just, I don't know how to phrase it. You know what I mean? But you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
He's essentially in the books, he's deemed tainted. He's too tainted to be Captain America.
To be like an official hero. Like,
I guess so,
there's too much baggage, I guess.
Yeah, I guess baggage
I hate saying that because like there's always stories of like let go of the baggage, you're a new person. It's like, well, it doesn't matter
if you let go of it and you're a changed person, people are never forget
Yeah.
what you've done.
Exactly.
And that's up to the people and the higher powers all be to make you a voice or a face of the country, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's the unfortunate truth of the matter. And I wish more people understood that, especially for the MCU version, because it's like, yeah, that's easy to say that. But I mean, dude, he's like got the most unknown kills of any assassin in the world.
I mean, he murdered Tony Stark's parents.
Exactly. He did many things that he was not in control of, but also he remembers every single one of these things.
Every single kill.
And so to then take that baggage and weight on his shoulders, and then to be expected to parade around as Captain America seems like a tall order. So, but you know,
no.
Some people want to see it. But anyway, we're gonna move on a little bit. So another title that he has had in the comics is a very important one, and this calls back to our episode on What If and the Watcher. So long story short, when Nick Fury in the comic books becomes the Watcher, he is then left. He has left the position of man on the wall open. So, for those of you who don't know, are you familiar with the man on the wall terminology at all?
Not that.
So, in general jargon, man on the wall is like it's almost like a military term where he's like the sniper on the roof. Okay. So imagine, if you will, Nick Fury once was in the comic books the man on the wall. So it was his duty to, if something was going to threaten Earth or something, a crucial event, in a time-space continuum, it was his duty to ensure that did not happen. So when Nick Fury became the Watcher, that left the position of Man of the Wall open, and Bucky was present with him during all of this in the comic books. So that left Bucky in that role, if you will. He becomes the Man of the Wall. And sadly, this is something I don't think we're ever going to see. It's too gigantic of a storyline, with a human cosmic cube.
A human cube. Yeah. Okay.
Who, he at one point he was supposed to kill her, and then he didn't kill her, and he ended up taking care of her, and all this stuff happens. But yeah, so in the comics, he's the Man on the Wall. They did explore that quite a bit in a solo series, and it kind of took Bucky on a intergalactic adventure, but then it just got tabled, and it's never been brought up again.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening anymore. It's all over the place, but he still has the title. We just don't know what they're going to do with it. And then that brings us to What If ... voiced by Sebastian Stan. So yeah, we've seen both 1940s Buck and the Winter Soldier in the series, and he's instrumental in the Captain Carter episodes.
Yeah.
I love that version of that character. Both versions of that character. I think he's well done in there too, and he's pretty funny. And oh my god, all the puns are just killing me. Like he makes the one about the octopus or the sushi, and all the ones about Hydra, and I'm just like, oh my god, stop. It's also hilarious because they're dad jokes. I love the Winter Soldier one because the zombie episode is incredible.
Yes.
Like, sorry, Cap, this is the end of the line.
And it's like, oh gosh.
Yeah. It's cringy, but it's so good. And then, I guess last but not least, that leaves the White Wolf, who I just wanted to briefly touch on.
Yeah.
We first mentioned the original White Wolf in our Black Panther episode. And so for those of you who aren't aware, T'Challa's adoptive brother in the comic books, his name is Hunter. He blamed T'Challa for T'Challa's mother's death. He wanted or not T'Challa's mother, but he wanted to get revenge on the brother for losing succession, and there's a lot of family strife in there. Basically, the original White Wolf was not a good person. And he was a bad guy. And they've more or less revamped that character namesake and giving it to Bucky of all people. And I kind of liked how that was a nice little homage in Falcon and Winter Soldier. It's interesting because I do believe that Hunter, the White Wolf, was in a couple of the cartoons or in an
really?
episode or two. Yeah, I think I saw something. Maybe it's the Avengers series, but Marvel just revealed last week that I believe the original character is reemerging in the comic books.
Okay.
In a Captain America comic.
Ooh.
So that's going to be really interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure. Let me show you this really quick because I have many questions. And, and it's very interesting because if you look at the comments, people immediately think it's Bucky. And it's like, well, no. Well, at least I don't think so. There you go. The White Wolf arrives. So we'll see who that ends up being.
Yeah.
And what the story is behind that. Because, I mean, if you look at it real quick, it looks like Tony, but it's not Tony. Yeah, so we'll see. Whether or not we'll see Bucky as the White Wolf, who knows? And what if they're going to really bank on that at all? I don't think they will. But
I wonder if they... Yeah.
So, I added a new sort of section, the future of the character in the films. So after the Falcon and Winter Soldier, do we see him in Captain America 4, another series, a movie?
Yeah.
Romantic interest.
We touched on a little bit.
We touched on all of that, yeah. And listener Laura, she asked this question actually too, and she added more healing, avenging, dating, and
dating.
Yeah, I think all of the above. Yeah, sure. Because I think he's got a lot of damage done. He's going to need to keep healing. I think every day is new healing for this character. Avenging? I mean, I would assume so. I think he still wants to be on the right side of good and do
for
things.
sure.
Dating? I don't know. We'll see, I guess.
Here's I don't mean to take it away from him as a character or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he gets a solo project, or is he pretty much like in tone, in like parallel, with Falcon type of thing, or Captain America?
I personally think he deserves something.
Okay.
I don't think he needs a movie. I think he could use a mini-series. I think a 4-episode mini-series.
Yeah.
The Winter Soldier.
Sure. Yeah.
100%. If only because I would either or both like to see him just being the Winter Soldier and all that, all those gaps of time. Maybe they could go throughout time, and because you got to remember they placed him at JFK's assassination and all these important moments in.
So you would
history.
like to see those flashbacks kind of fleshed out more.
A little bit, but I don't think they're as important as I would just simply like to see Bucky not have to rely on somebody else. Because I feel like they do, like you mentioned before, like he was very much intertwined and integrated with Cap, and he is in the comics as well. And then later on with Sam as Captain America / Falcon. And they did that quite a bit in the comics as well. But in the comics, he has had his own solo series. So he's absolutely 100% capable of having his own storyline. And I think even if those people come in and out periodically in small increments, I think he can still carry and have a storyline that is progressive and also insightful and also helps the character grow.
Yeah.
And I think like for instance, when he's talking about like his daily with the therapist, right? And his first appearance in Falcon and Winter Soldier, even that nugget was so satisfying because it was interesting to see how is this 106-year-old man who has no family, who has nobody, quote unquote, going to go about and try and redeem himself, not only in the government's eyes, not only in the public eye, but also with himself. And so I think the showrunner once mentioned that he wanted to explore Bucky's story more, but he didn't want to override Sam because it's very easy to do so.
Yes.
Like you could easily accidentally spill over the brim talking about Bucky and Winter Soldier over and over again.
Yeah, and vice versa too.
Yeah, and vice versa. Yes, exactly. And so it's kind of like, they're kind of like conjoined twins where I'm like, you could pull them apart, I think. And I think they would still be equally very interesting and very independent entities in their own right. And I think they should, at least for Bucky, give him something a little more where he's not a sidekick, because I feel like he is treated like a sidekick even when he's not a sidekick.
For sure. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said it's tough. But I also go like, you know, before I say anything, like I believe every character that has been introduced in like the MCU deserves their own solo project for whatever it is.
Yeah.
You know, miniseries, episodic.
Yeah.
Big movie.
Piggybacking on that idea, would you be satisfied with a series that's just like, I don't know what the title is, but humor me, where every episode is an hour-long short film for characters? So like say like one episode is 1 hour of just Bucky Barnes, another episode is 1 hour of I don't know, Shuri, the next one is only Monica Rambeau, like things like that.
That's tough.
Is it tough?
I mean, I guess it depends like what story you want to tell of them, you know?
Right. Just
like is it
like
1
side
hour
story.
of them doing what?
Side stories.
Side story. Like,
side quests.
Exactly. So it's like, yeah. And then I can see that for sure.
Yeah.
But I feel like the people, like you said, the people would want more.
Yeah.
Like it's like that.
Insatiable.
Like you have them do like one hour quest of something that they did that was in between this movie or that movie, or it was post this movie. And so what are they gonna do after that?
Yeah.
And you're like, look, dude, I can only do you so much. We can only get so much of a budget. We can only get so much money. Like, does the actor want to do it? And I think it's an actor thing too. If the actors really care, and I think they do care about these characters that they portrayed, like how will my next project evolve my character?
Right.
And is it in a way that makes sense for my character?
Yeah.
So whether, like you said, whether that's in a 1 hour form, a miniseries, episodic, or a movie form, they should be up for it. And I mean, we keep going back to Elizabeth Olsen as Scarlet Witch, like especially her. I know she loves playing that character, but she's not going to continue to do the character if it's not going to be in a way that Wanda and the Scarlet Witch is evolving in a way that makes sense.
Right.
So it's like, and I feel like that's how all actors feel for their characters, because you know,
beating
like,
a dead horse is no way to go.
Yeah. Like if you play the same character with basically plateaued growth over 7-10 years.
Oh yeah.
And you've reached no climax, it's like, well, then why did you even play this
Right.
character? Like, what was the point of
Yeah.
all these other previous appearances if you're not going to grow?
Yep. Exactly.
But I mean, having his own movie or even series would be cool, but you know, you got to go to the vision board. That's why they went on that Marvel retreat.
Yeah, exactly.
And they
do it
mapped
every
out
year.
the next 10 years of Marvel.
Oh my god, it's so crazy! Oh, I can't wait to
But
be
I do hope
geriatric rolling into these movies.
I do hope he does make an appearance in the Falcon Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Captain America 4.
Yeah.
Maybe in the capacity of like how much Wanda is in Doctor Strange 2. Not necessarily him being a villain.
Yeah.
But like that kind of parallel.
Yeah.
But also, who knows?
Yeah.
Since they're piggybacking off a joint TV show already. So
It's like I say though, if they're comfortable erasing Bucky Nat, sky's the limit. They'll do anything. They will do anything.
what if they revive the story? What if they just find a way to just drop a nugget of it, and then they never bring it up ever again?
I'll be satisfied. I will take that nugget and I will nourish it.
What if Sebastian Stan in a random line is just like, oh yeah, back in whatever year, me and Nat, and we're like, you and Nat? And Sam's like, you and Nat, and then Bucky's like, yeah, well, you know, anyways, and you're like, and they just move across, they just move from
Plot twist. What if they did it? What if it was Melina, the mom?
Rachel White?
Yeah. What if they played that?
I mean, I wouldn't hold it past.
Just not.
See, now
like,
I'm thinking of ideas, because now that you have that idea, and then we bring up the previous idea of Bucky and Yelena like meeting, and then what if like Bucky's like, huh, you look familiar.
Yeah.
like, and they're like, "Who's your mom?" And then they'll be like, "Oh,
shit.
boom," and then boom, they fight.
Right, exactly. Oh my gosh.
Now they got beef.
That would be wild. Right? Anyway. Okay, so we're almost there, and we're almost was. So, much like Tom Hiddleston nabbed Loki, Sebastian landed the role of Bucky Barnes while auditioning for Steve Rogers.
Of course.
Ultimately losing it to Chris Evans.
Obviously.
So I don't know that there's a screen test.
For Bucky Barnes?
Yeah, have you? No, for Sebastian as Captain America.
I have not seen.
I have not
one.
seen it.
No.
God, I hope they leak that one day. But yeah, it is an interesting thought. But again, not one I need to worry about because and I think Sebastian himself even said that it was for the good because he found Bucky to be a more interesting character.
Oh wow, nice.
Which fair enough because he does kind of go through this crazy, journey.
Yeah,
like we've just talked about for probably 5 hours. But shock to me, I don't know about you, but there were no other listed possibilities for this character. Like he seemed to have gotten it before they even went out to people to screen test.
Man.
Yeah, so he nailed it. He got it.
Probably nailed it.
Yeah. But fan casts have included, but are not limited to, Dacker Montgomery.
Okay.
And he's been listed a few times already. This is the hot mustachio guy from Stranger Things, who was also the Red Ranger in the new Power Rangers film. Zachary Gordon from Diary of the Wimpy Kid. Kit Harington, our very own Dane Whitman of the Eternals, soon to be Black Knight. Of the three, Dacker was like apparently number one.
Okay.
I think he's too pretty, but that's fine. But yeah, that's about it. And Sebastian Stan was numero uno from the get-go.
Worked out.
Yep. And then some suggested reading before we close out. There's a ton of great Winter Soldier stories out there, but I'm going to name these in particular because I think they're fun. 2018's The Unstoppable Wasp. You got to check that one out. It's very interesting because the main character is, and we've mentioned her, I think, before, she is of the Red Room. And Bucky, it's a more loose version of Bucky, I feel, because he's obviously Winter Soldier at this point, but it's more slapstick kind of PG-13 young adult humor fun. Yeah, it's cute. And then 2015's Captain America White. Okay, that one is the crucial one. That's the crucial one. So I got to talk about this really quick because there was this color series written by Jeff Loeb and then penciled by Tim Sale with Dave Stewart on colors. And so Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale pulled together these series of books. There are 4 issues for each one, if not 6, maybe 4 to 6. And so there was Hulk Gray, there was Spider-Man Blue, Daredevil Yellow, and Captain America White.
Okay.
And so each series, up until the Captain America ones, was essentially about the main hero and their, love interest.
Okay.
So Hulk had Betty, Daredevil had Karen Page, Spider-Man Gwen Stacy.
Okay.
Captain America had Bucky.
Wow.
So they kind of broke the chain with this one because, again, it was very much like, and I remember when it was first announced, I was like, wait, what? And then you actually read the issues, and it's a very beautiful story, and it's very much, it's during the time before Bucky comes back as the Winter Soldier. And so this is when Steve comes out of the ice. He realizes, oh my God, my friend is dead. And so he goes back in recollection of when they first met and how all the missions that they used to do and stuff. And it's really beautifully written and drawn.
Yeah.
So I think everyone should read that one. And then, of course, the 2020 series of Falcon and Winter Soldier. If you want some slapstick humor between Sam and Buck, I think that's a good place to start. And I've said it before and I'll say it again, anything with Ed Brubaker's name on it. So go forth and read all the Captain America and all the Bucky and all the Falcon Winter Soldier books that you can. Woo! And so that's the end of the show, friend.
Whoa.
A lot of lore with him.
Oh my gosh. And I feel like I still left out so much stuff.
There's still
So
a
much
lot
stuff.
left to be talked about for this
Yeah.
guy,
Yeah,
for sure.
For sure. But yeah, that is our wonderful Bucky Barnes.
The great James Buchanan
James.
Bonds.
James Bonds. Bonds, James Bonds. So thanks for listening, guys. Next episode. So we have a mini Marvel next.
Oh.
Yeah. So we're going to talk all things. Well, let me ask you hot on the spot, Jeff.
Oh.
We were initially planning to kind of lead into the Moon Knight of this for a mini Marvel.
Yes.
Has that changed with the Doctor Strange, or do you want to do Doctor Strange 2 a little further along?
Oh.
Yeah. Or we can do all. We can do all the above. Because God knows what's going to be released in this time.
That's also true.
2 weeks is a long time.
So now that we think about it, because we wanted to combine like a Moon Knight recap review into our mini Marvel.
Yeah.
But then after we saw Multiverse of Madness, I was like, dude, I think this needs its own episode.
Yeah.
And then now that I'm thinking about it,
Yep.
what if we can still do a mini Marvel, but maybe we push a mini Marvel and then we make one episode of half review Moon Knight and the second half review Multiverse of Madness.
We can do that.
So it's kind of like a review recap episode, but on two different projects.
Yeah. Yeah. We can
That
do
way
that.
we can like, so we don't have to like feel like we have to like answer the questions, but then
Yeah.
also like still want to talk. But that way we can
Yeah.
like focus on the characters that have been brought to light in both
Yeah.
of those projects.
Yeah.
Those projects being Moon
Yeah.
Knight and Multiverse of Madness,
Sure.
because there was a lot. Like I say, review and recap of the show and movies, but. There's a lot of characters revealed in there, and
Yeah.
we won't go deep into those characters. Obviously, if we need to, we'll do our own episode for them. But
Right.
just in general, like the amount of lore, like literally two different types of lore.
Yeah.
Like Egyptian lore.
Yeah.
And then multiverse lore.
Magic.
And magic lore, multiverse lore, just
Yeah.
X-Men.
X-Men.
Like
Exactly.
there's a lot of like things to unpack and just to say
There's so
out loud
much to
verbally. Yeah.
Oh,
That
blessed
I
be.
feel like
Yeah.
when time comes for them to do, when
Yeah.
we need to do a character study on
Yeah.
individual,
Yeah.
it'll come.
Yeah.
But we just need to like,
Yeah.
I think like in my opinion, like put everything into its perspective in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and
Yeah.
like what roles that they play now that those types of characters have been revealed.
Yeah. Exactly.
So
Okay.
if you're down for that,
Yeah, we can do that. We can do that.
and then
Although, I'll do you one better. Can I make an executive decision and that our next character study, our actual character study, will be Yelena Belova?
Of course. Why would I say no to that?
I think it's time. I think it's time.
Why would I say no to my girl Flo? You know,
Your girl Flo, my wifey Flo. Okay, so
she's literally the only person on Instagram where if they have one of those small stories
Yeah.
and like it's a long story,
you're like,
and I'm like, I'm gonna watch it.
You're gonna watch the entire
it's an episode of Cooking with Flo.
Hey.
You're damn right.
My man.
Hell
Yeah.
yeah.
Hell yeah.
I'm down.
Okay, cool. So that's what's coming up next on the show. And we are Groot. Salute to Claire, Ed, Katie, Laura, Tyler, Ariel, Joe, Liz, Robin, the Rackner, Jenny, Ashley, Nats, Andrew, and Melanie with you till the end of the eyeliner, as I say. Follow us on social at STRKCNTRST. And if you like what you hear, please review, rate, and subscribe. We know you're out there. Just hit it. Hit that 5-star.
Just
hit
keep
it.
engaging.
Just do it.
We'll keep responding.
Heck yeah, we will.
Thank you guys for sticking with us to the end of the episode. And yeah, like she said, subscribe, follow,
Review.
like, everything.
All the things.
All right, guys. Talk to you soon, and we'll see you in the next one.
In the next one.
Bye.
Bye.
Steve. Which Bucky am I talking to?
Your mom's name is Sarah. He used to wear newspapers in your shoes.
Can't read that in the museum.
Just like that, we're supposed to be cool?